Chapter 655. Yao Yao fainted from anger? Let's wait for the interrogation results to come out first. We don't know if these people are all the criminals. Are there any that escaped? Lingshan felt that this case was solved too quickly, and the criminals didn't even put up a fight before surrendering. Lingshan felt that it was a little strange. Although they didn't have any hostages, and it was impossible for them to escape from the police, Lingshan still felt that there was more to it than meets the eye. Especially the main surgeon. Why did he commit suicide? Did he have no choice, or did he commit suicide? She had to investigate all of these, and it was too early to say that the case was solved. Meng Yao didn't have a big appetite. Although she was eating as much as she could, 6 dishes and 1 soup wasn't something she could finish alone. She ate a few mouthfuls of each dish and was almost full. Meng Yao could only comfort herself. Although she didn't eat much, she ate every dish. This way, the nutrition was balanced, and her body was healthy. Who cared if Tang Yan thought that she was wasteful? As long as she was happy. With that thought, Meng Yao didn't force herself to eat anymore. After a few mouthfuls, she put down her chopsticks. Shoo, I'm full. Let's go back to class. Oh, but Yao Yao sis, you haven't finished yet? Yushu pointed at the food on the table. Nope, I can't eat anymore. You don't want me to become like you last time, do you? Meng Yao really couldn't eat anymore. Oh, never mind then. Yao Yao sis, you always want to assassinate me, but I don't want to assassinate you. Yushu said. Meng Yao was speechless. When did I assassinate you? The two walked out of the cafeteria hand in hand. When they passed by Tang Yun's table, the miss raised her head proudly. She didn't even look at Tang Yun. Xinwen curled her lips. What are you so proud of? You can't finish it, right? What a waste of food. Meng Yao was angry, but she didn't care. This kind of thing wouldn't be solved in a short period of time. There were more people in the cafeteria now, and Meng Yao didn't want people to laugh at her. Back in the classroom, Meng Yao and Yushu took out their MP4s and started watching cartoons. They'd watch cartoons whenever they had free time in the afternoon. Yao Yao, has Zhong Pingliang been bothering you these past few days? Yushu, on the other hand, wasn't used to it. Pingliang used to chase after Meng Yao every day, and Yushu was always able to get some benefits from him. What, you want him to come? Meng Yao felt that her life was much more peaceful without Pingliang bothering her. Oh, he's not bothering you anymore, so you don't need a shield anymore? Is Shield Bro going to be fired? Yushu said, a little reluctant. Yushu's words startled Meng Yao. She hadn't thought of this problem before, and she hadn't thought about it at all. That was right, he'd asked Linny to come in the first place to find a shield and get rid of Pingliang's harassment. Now that he had achieved his goal, Zhong Pingliang had shed all pretense of cordiality with him. After what had happened before, there was no way he would pursue him anymore. So Lin Yi's work is really over? The miss felt a little sour in her heart. She hadn't spent a long time with Lin Yi, but it wasn't short either. She seemed to have gotten used to his existence. Meng Yao was a little annoyed that Yushu suddenly brought this up. If Yushu didn't say it, she could pretend that nothing had happened. She wouldn't have deliberately thought about it, and Lin Yi would still be the old Lin Yi, her follower. But now that Yushu said it, did she have to fire Lin Yi? He was so despicable, flirting around, he deserved to be fired. But, he seemed quite pitiful, didn't he? An orphan came to work in a foreign city, and if she fired him, what would he do? Out of sympathy, she couldn't fire him for now. She couldn't burn the bridge after she'd outlived her usefulness, could she? That wasn't what a good kid should do. Meng Yao found a suitable excuse for herself. Besides, it seemed like she was still in danger. Shoo, Pingliang can already do such crazy things, it's hard to say that he won't be even crazier in the future. We're still in a dangerous situation, and we need someone to protect us. Meng Yao said, from the looks of it, Lin Yi is still qualified, so let's use him for now? Besides, he's quite pitiful, he's an orphan, otherwise he wouldn't be homeless. Oh, he can stay at Tang Yun's house. Yushu interrupted. Meng Yao raged and glared at Yushu. Was this girl doing it on purpose? Yao Yao sis, why are you glaring at me? Did I say something wrong? Oh, I know, if you want to pursue Shield Bro, you can't let him stay at Tang Yun's house. Yushu said with a smile, I finally found out Yao Yao sis' secret, I'm the spy, Shu 007. Meng Yao was furious. Who wants to pursue Lin Yi? I'm the miss, how can I pursue him? He should be the one pursuing me, I might not even say yes. But thinking about how Lin Yi ignored her, Meng Yao's blood rushed to her head, and she didn't know why, but she felt dizzy and laid on the table, Yao Yao sis? Yushu saw that Meng Yao was ignoring her, so she called her. But Meng Yao didn't reply, and Yushu was a little scared. I'll stop, okay? I'm just joking, don't ignore me, okay? Meng Yao still didn't move. Yao Yao sis, what are you doing? Don't ignore me, I'm your best friend. Yushu thought that Meng Yao was really angry, so she went to pull her arm coquettishly. But Meng Yao didn't move at all, and even when Yushu pulled her, she moved a little out of habit. This time, Yushu really felt that something was wrong. Yao Yao sis, don't scare me, okay? You're not going to faint from anger, are you? I'm just saying that you're going after Shield bro, why are you going to faint? Meng Yao still didn't move. Yushu didn't care about joking anymore. She was really panicking, and she didn't know where she got the strength from, but she carried Meng Yao on her back, stumbling out of the classroom, and ran towards the school sick bay. The potential of a human body was limitless, and Yushu didn't have that much strength, but at this moment, there was only one thought in her mind, and that was to make sure that nothing happened to Yao Yao sis. So she didn't even think about whether she could carry Meng Yao or not, and just ran out with Meng Yao on her back. Chapter 656. She doesn't love Shield bro anymore. School doctor, school doctor. Yao Yao has fainted, please take a look at her. Yushu's tone had changed as well. It wasn't her usual cute tone anymore, but it sounded a little hoarse now. Yushu carried Meng Yao into the sick bay and was just about to place her on the bed when she realized that there were already a few students lying on the bed. There were also a lot of teachers and students in the sick bay as well, and it seemed like something had happened. Another one? The school doctor frowned when he saw Yushu carrying Meng Yao in, cold sweat forming on his forehead. Why are there so many people? Why isn't the ambulance here yet? The school doctor didn't know what to do with the students fainting one after another. He couldn't tell what caused the fainting at all, and all the students had the same symptoms. Their faces were pale, and their breathing was rapid. Dr. Li, how's the situation? The dean, Wang Jifeng, rushed over as soon as he heard the news. He frowned when he saw the sick bay full of teachers and students. Teachers and students who are not involved, please leave. Don't squeeze in here, the air is bad. Wang Jifeng's words were very effective. Be it the teachers or the students, they all left the sick bay obediently. But since the people inside were their classmates or good friends, the teachers and students didn't want to go too far. They lingered in the corridors, not willing to leave. But there was one person who didn't leave. Yushu was still hugging Meng Yao tightly, sitting at the corner of the bed. Wang Jifeng knew her, and naturally, he wouldn't chase her away. But when he saw Meng Yao in her arms, he was shocked. Wasn't this the chairman's daughter? She fainted as well? Wang Jifeng was sweating profusely. He didn't have time to ask and quickly called the principal, Ding Binggong, to report the situation. Principal Ding, where are you? More than 10 students from the school are unconscious, including Chairman Chu's daughter, Meng Yao. Jifeng couldn't handle the situation, so he called Binggong. Ding Binggong went to the Education Bureau for a meeting, so he didn't rush back to school for lunch at noon. Instead, he went out to eat with the other principals. When he received Wang Jifeng's call, he turned pale with fright. He didn't bother to explain to the other principals. He just said, something happened at school. Then he hurriedly pulled the driver out of the restaurant and got in the car. Then he asked, Old Wang, what did you say? More than 10 students fainted? And Meng Yao? What is going on? I've just arrived, so I'm not too sure. Dr. Li, what kind of illness do these students have? Why did so many students faint all of a sudden? Wang Jifeng finally had the time to ask the anxious Dr. Li, Dean Wang, I'm not sure. I've never seen such symptoms before. I'm not sure if it's an acute infection. I've already called the emergency center. The ambulance should be here soon. Dr. Li said carefully. When Dr. Li spoke, Wang Jifeng's phone was also on, so Ding Binggong on the other side heard everything clearly. His head exploded. If something happened to the school, not only would it affect the school's reputation, even the corporation would be implicated. Old Wang, I'll rush back immediately. You must stay calm. Don't let anything happen to the students. Ding Binggong ordered anxiously. I understand. I'll try my best to control the situation. Wang Jifeng nodded with a heavy expression. But he also knew that the current situation wasn't something he could control. While he was making the call, there were more than one unconscious students being sent in by the teachers. This gave Jifeng a headache. At the same time, he quickly thought of the reason why the students were like this. If he couldn't find the reason, then there would be more students like this. By that time, it would be too late. However, even Dr. Li didn't know the specific situation. How could a non-medical graduate like him know the specific situation? So, while Wang Jifeng waited for Ding Binggong, he could only pray for the ambulance to arrive faster so that the students could go to a proper hospital for treatment as soon as possible. Yushu was a little dumbfounded. She originally thought that Meng Yao fainted because of her anger, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. There seemed to be a lot of people with the same symptoms as Yao Yao sis. What happened to these people? But even so, Yushu was even more worried. If it was just anger, it would be easy to deal with it. But now, it wasn't anger, but something else. Yushu was panicking. She subconsciously thought of Lin Yi. When she was about to die last time, it was also Lin Yi who saved her. So, she planned to find Lin Yi to save Meng Yao. Yushu quickly took out her phone and called Lin Yi. But after waiting for a long time, the phone automatically hung up. Lin Yi didn't pick up. Yushu called again, and it was the same. No one picked up. Damn shield bro, where did you go? If anything happens to Yao Yao sis, I'll never like you again. I won't forgive you for the rest of my life. Yushu said to herself angrily. While waiting for the ambulance, a few more students were sent to the school sick bay. Up until now, there were a total of 28 students waiting for the ambulance to send them to the hospital. During this time, Dr. Lee made a few more calls, urging the emergency center to send more ambulances. At the same time, he also asked them to send more ambulances. At least 7 to 8 ambulances were needed to transport these students. However, in the following time, until the first class in the afternoon, no more students were sent to the school sick bay. It seemed that this round of fainting had stopped temporarily. This made Jifeng and Dr. Lee let out a sigh of relief. Ding Binggong arrived at the school almost at the same time as the ambulance. The students were carried into the ambulance one by one. Naturally, Yushu didn't want to leave Meng Yao alone. She accompanied Meng Yao to the ambulance. Ding Binggong and Jifeng knew Yushu, so naturally, they didn't stop her. They got into the ambulance with Meng Yao. Dr. Lee and the other ambulance stayed at the school. If there were any fainted students, they would be sent to the hospital immediately. Chapter 657. Cause of coma? Shu, what's wrong with Yao Yao? Can you tell us what happened? Ding Binggong wanted to know the truth of the matter, but he didn't get any useful information from Jifeng and Dr. Lee, so he turned his attention to Yushu. Yushu was with Meng Yao, so she should know more about the process of Meng Yao fainting. But Yushu's words were no different from what the other students had said. All of them fainted not long after they returned to the classroom after lunch. At first, Dr. Lee had suspected that the students fainted because of food poisoning, since the students only started fainting after lunch. But this theory didn't hold up to scrutiny, since the fainted students were only a small percentage of the students who ate in the cafeteria. There were only 28 of them. With that, the possibility of food poisoning was much lower. Why else would the other students be fine? It wasn't very likely that it was caused by eating a certain type of food. After all, there wasn't a single dish that only 28 students ate, was there? As a result, they had to go to the hospital to determine the cause of the coma. Along the way, the ambulances ran through several red lights. It was rare to see such a fleet of ambulances, but the cars on the road also took the initiative to make way for them. It was obvious that something big had happened for so many ambulances to be dispatched at once. Binggong gathered his thoughts and dialed up Pengzhan's number. He had to inform the chairman of the school about something this serious, not to mention that Meng Yao was one of the fainted students. It was all the more reason for him to inform Pengzhan. Pengzhan was in the middle of a meeting when his phone rang. He didn't want to pick it up at first, but Binggong's name appeared on the screen. He didn't really want to pick it up, but Binggong didn't usually call him unless he came to the company to report on his work every week. If it wasn't business, then it had to be something that happened to Meng Yao, Yushu, or Lin Yi. That was why he would call him personally. At that thought, Pengzhan gestured for everyone to wait before picking up the phone. Headmaster Ding, what's up? I'm in the middle of a meeting. Pengzhan's words were very clear. If Binggong didn't have anything important to attend to, they could fight later. Chairman Chu, something has happened to the school. Binggong said solemnly. 28 students fainted for unknown reasons during lunch break, and Meng Yao was one of them. What? Pengzhan stood up subconsciously in shock. The news about Ding Binggong was already shocking enough. More than 20 students fainted at the same time. Such a big incident had never happened since the school was founded. If it wasn't handled well, the reputation of the school and even the reputation of the corporation would be severely affected. What worried Pengzhan the most was his daughter Meng Yao's safety. Meng Yao was a part of his life, and now that Meng Yao had fainted, how could he have the mood to continue the meeting? He waved his hand, indicating that the meeting could be adjourned. The meeting is adjourned. Li Fu, come with me for a moment. Yes, Mr. Chu. Li Fu nodded and followed Pengzhan into the meeting room. As Pengzhan's confidant, he could naturally tell that something was wrong with Pengzhan's emotions. Something must have happened to him. In Pengzhan Industries, Chu Pengzhan's words carried enormous weight, and no one dared to say anything against him. Guanghua and Gubang's resignation was still fresh in their minds, so how could the new shareholders not be treading on thin ice? Seeing that Pengzhan had something to attend to, they didn't dare ask any questions. They only left the meeting room and returned to their offices after Pengzhan had left. Pengzhan, on the other hand, frowned as he held the phone in his hand. Is Yao Yao all right? Is she in danger? I'm not sure yet, Mr. Chu. We're about to reach the hospital, it's only a few minutes' drive away. Binggong said. All right, which hospital? I'll be there right away. Pengzhan was panicking, but there was nothing he could do. At the Second People's Hospital. Binggong said. The best hospitals in the city were the First People's Hospital and the Second People's Hospital. However, the First People's Hospital had been established for a long time, so many people had higher recognition of it than the Second People's Hospital. However, the Second People's Hospital was also a branch of the First People's Hospital. After Guan Xuemin's son's Mingyang Medical Group invested in it, it was established as the Second People's Hospital. The doctors here were also from the First People's Hospital, and the medical facilities were also the latest. Many young people began to recognize the Second People's Hospital. The First People's Hospital couldn't send 7 or 8 ambulances at once, so the Second People's Hospital went to the school to pick up the unconscious students. All right, I understand. Pengzhan hung up the phone and said to Faubert, go to the Second People's Hospital. Yao Yao fainted, and there are a total of 28 students who fainted for unknown reasons. We'll be there right away. All right, Mr. Chu. Faubert heard that Meng Yao fainted as well. He quickly started the car and rushed to the Second People's Hospital. 5 minutes later, the ambulances stopped at the entrance of the Second People's Hospital. There were already medical staff waiting at the entrance, and they pushed the unconscious students to the emergency room one by one. Yushu sent Meng Yao to the emergency room. It wasn't until the doctor told her that the patient's family could only wait outside that Yushu let go of Meng Yao's hand reluctantly. Yao Yao sis, you have to hold on. Binggong, Jifeng, and Yushu waited at the entrance of the emergency room, anxiously waiting for the results. Principal Ding, Dean Wang, Shu. Pengzhan rushed to the hospital quickly, and saw the 3 people outside the emergency room. He strode over, and Faubert accompanied Pengzhan anxiously at the side. Mr. Chu. Uncle Chu. Binggong, Jifeng, and Yushu called out at the same time. Binggong smiled bitterly and said to Pengzhan, they're all in the emergency room, we don't know the results yet. Pengzhan nodded, and his face was also anxious. How's the school? We have to be stable, don't let the students panic. Chapter 658. A heated argument, we still have to inform them of this. Pengzhan sighed. Don't push the responsibility away. If it's really the school's fault, then we have to give the parents an explanation. Even if it's not the school's fault, we have to do our best to save the students. The medical fees will be covered by the company. All right, Dean Wang, I'll leave this to you to communicate with the parents. Make sure not to escalate the conflict and maintain the school's reputation as much as possible. Binggong instructed Jifeng. All right, Headmaster Ding, I'll do that right away. Jifeng nodded and started calling the school staff to compile the files of the fainted students. Soon, the parents of the students who got the news rushed to the hospital. It was a mess at the entrance of the emergency room. Some parents were still able to ask about their children's situation normally, but some parents directly shouted, "What's wrong with my child? He was fine when he was sent to your school, why did he faint? What did you do? If anything happens to my child, I'll tear down your school. Who's the headmaster? How is your school run? Why did my child faint when he was there? Everyone, stop arguing. This is a hospital, and your children are in the emergency room. What if you interrupt the doctors?" Binggong and Jifeng looked at the parents helplessly. You even know that our children are in the emergency room? What kind of headmaster are you? A student fainted in the school, what are you guys thinking? What the hell are you guys doing? A middle-aged woman pointed at Binggong and scolded. That's right. Have our students been treated unfairly? Did they faint because of corporal punishment? We want to know the truth. Another parent shouted. The truth. The truth. The truth. We want the truth. The other parents also shouted. Since they were going to make a scene, they were going to make a scene together. For the sake of their children, these parents were not afraid to fight to the death with the school. Pengzhan frowned, the situation was getting heated up, so he walked over himself and gestured for the parents to calm down. Everyone, quiet, I'm the chairman of Pengzhan Industries. Pengzhan, you're the chairman? You want us to calm down? Can you calm down? It's not your child inside, of course you're not worried. The middle-aged woman interrupted Pengzhan before he could finish. That's right. You're the chairman of the board. How precious are you? Your children are all princesses and young masters. Our children can't do it. They can't even faint in school. Another parent also teased. Although I'm the chairman of Pengjan Industries and the director of the school, I feel the same as all of you. I'm also worried and praying for the kids inside. Pengjan said, as parents, what we should be doing now is waiting for the results from the doctor, not making a scene. It's not good for the children at all. It's easy for you to say that. So it's not your child? Aren't you worried? The middle-aged woman was obviously a prick. Her words were the sharpest. You're still worried? Are you worried that your school's reputation will be tarnished? Yeah, you're worried about the school's reputation, right? The other parents also said. Everyone, you've misunderstood. I've already said that I'm the same as all of you. I'm standing here as a parent. Pengjan shook his head and said, because my daughter, Chu Mengyao, is also one of the unconscious students. I'm also worried about my daughter. As for the corporal punishment you're talking about, it's all nonsense. Do you think that Principal Bingong can still stand here and talk to you after punishing my daughter? He would have been expelled by me a long time ago. Pengjan's words stunned all the parents. They never would have thought that Pengjan's daughter was also one of the unconscious students. Then all their previous guesses were really wrong. Unless the teachers and the principal had the guts to not continue working in the school, they wouldn't punish the director's daughter. The middle-aged woman who was the loudest just now also stopped moving. She was a little ashamed. It seemed like she had wronged Pengjan? The chairman's daughter was also unconscious. What right did she have to criticize Pengjan? They were just parents who were worried about their children. So the only thing we can do now is to wait for the doctor's results. If it's really the school's responsibility, then the school will definitely take responsibility. Even if it's not the school's responsibility, the school will try its best to treat the children, and the medical fees will be covered by the school. Pengjan continued. Hearing Pengjan's words, the parents didn't say anything. Pengjan's words were reasonable, and they couldn't refute him. Why not wait for the doctor's results first? Time passed, and Pengjan and the parents were anxiously waiting for the doctor's results. The emergency room lights were still on, meaning that the rescue was still ongoing. After all, there were more than 20 students, and it wasn't a problem that could be solved in a short amount of time. Suddenly, there was a flurry of footsteps and noise. A few people who looked like reporters rushed over with cameras and microphones. Some of them were bribed by Zihua, and some of them were friends of the bribed people. They were here because they had received a piece of news that 28 unconscious students were admitted to the hospital. This was big news, and even those who weren't bribed were more than happy to be a part of it. Hello, I'm Direwolf, a reporter from XX Daily. I heard that there was a terrible collective coma incident in Songshan's first school. May I ask if you are the parents of the students involved? This guy was one of the reporters bribed by Zihua, and he was also the leader of this interview. He used to be in the underworld, but he was beaten up by a special forces soldier when he went out to show off. He couldn't stay in the underworld anymore, and so he used his connections to become an interviewer for a street tabloid. One had to admit that this direwolf was quite mean. The moment he came up, he sharpened the conflict and made it into a terrible collective coma. Chapter 659. Notification of critical condition. Could it be that someone leaked the news? Or was there someone in the school who hated him and wanted to make a big deal out of this? Or was there something else going on? But, it didn't matter who called these people over. Pengjan had to think of a way to deal with them, otherwise they'd go back and write whatever they wanted, and it'd affect the school's reputation severely. I'm the chairman of Pengjan Industries. May I ask, where did you get this news? Pengjan had to come out and face the reporters. Oh? Chairman Chu is here? That's great, let's interview you directly. Direwolf rolled his eyes and pointed the spearhead at Pengjan. As long as Pengjan said something wrong, he could use it as a pretext. We heard that a school under your company had such a terrible incident. As the chairman of the company, what do you think about this? Is it a lapse in management, or someone is neglecting their duties, or are some teachers involved in crimes? Direwolf was famous for his sharp tongue. The few questions he asked were all very sharp and harsh. This reporter friend, I don't know how you got the news of the so-called evil group incident. Pengjan smiled faintly. But the doctor hasn't given an answer yet. Even the parents and I don't know the reason why the students are in a coma. How did you know? It doesn't matter how we know. Naturally, someone provided us with clues. Direwolf said. Even if you knew the reason, you wouldn't tell us, would you? The parents are the ones in the dark. You are the leaders of the school. Why would you care about the lives of other people's children? That's not right. Chairman Chu's daughter is also one of the students in a coma. How can you say that he doesn't care? The middle-aged woman didn't have any ulterior motives. She was telling the truth. Although she was a troublemaker, she wasn't a bad person. Direwolf froze. He didn't expect Pengzhan's daughter to be one of the victims. This contradicted his words. Pengzhan wasn't indifferent. In fact, he was quite concerned. However, Direwolf reacted quickly. Look, even Chairman Chu's daughter is in trouble in his own school. You can imagine how chaotic the school's management system is. Do you still dare to send your own children here? Ah! The middle-aged woman was slightly stunned after hearing that. But after thinking about it carefully, it did make sense. Even the daughter of the school's chairman had become like this. Wouldn't it be more dangerous for her, a commoner's child? After listening to Direwolf's words, the parents also had some doubts. Yes, the school can't even guarantee the safety of their chairman's daughter. How can they guarantee the safety of other students? Calm down, everyone. Pengzhan waved his hand. Didn't I tell you before? I don't know the real reason why the students are in a coma, and neither does the school doctor. We'll have to wait for the results from the secondary hospital's doctor. If it's really the school's fault, then the school won't push the blame away. It's still too early to talk about this. Pengzhan's words temporarily calmed the parents down. Yes, their children were still in the emergency room. It was still too early to get angry before the cause was clear. Direwolf didn't expect Pengzhan to solve the problem this way. He frowned. But he had taken the 20,000 yuan from Sihua. He was prepared to ruin Pengzhan's school. He couldn't just give up like this. He couldn't just go back and write whatever he wanted. If he did, Pengzhan would definitely sue them for defamation. If he made these parents angry, then it wouldn't be defamation anymore. What he wrote represented the wishes of these parents. Pengzhan could only vent his anger on these parents. But in the current situation, Direwolf couldn't say much. However, he wasn't stupid. He thought of a solution after thinking for a while. Since he couldn't incite these parents now, he might as well wait for the results of the hospital's examination to come out. He could then make an issue out of the results. Of course, he didn't know that the mastermind behind this fainting incident was Sihua. He also didn't know that Sihua was the one who sent people to poison the school. He only thought that Sihua had some conflict with Pengzhan and wanted to use this opportunity to ruin Pengzhan Industries and Songshan's first school. After waiting for another half an hour, the emergency room door opened. A doctor in a white coat walked out hurriedly. He saw the people at the door and said, "You are the patient's family, right?" "Yes, I am. How is my child?" The middle-aged woman and the group of parents immediately surrounded them, waiting for the doctor's news. Although Pengzhan wanted to ask, he was representing Pengzhan Industries now. Although he was worried about his daughter, he could only wait for the doctor to answer the parents first. "The situation is not good," the doctor said. "When the patient was sent here, we initially thought it was food poisoning. But after our tests, the food in the patient's stomach didn't contain any substances that could cause a coma." The parents were dumbfounded. If it wasn't food poisoning, then what was it? And the patient's symptoms don't match the symptoms of other acute infectious diseases. Of course, it could also be caused by a new type of virus. The doctor said, "All the patient's conditions are very unstable. Their physiological functions are declining rapidly. We've already given the patients fluids, but they are not out of danger yet. Instead, their condition is worsening. We've already isolated the patients to prevent the possibility of spreading the infection." Ah? They're not out of danger, but worsening? The parents were even more dumbfounded. What was going on? Even the hospital couldn't solve it? "Yes, we've already reported it to the higher authorities. We've also notified the experts in the medical field. We'll have a consultation later, but it's hard to say if there's a solution." The doctor said, "These are the notices of critical illness. Please find your child's copy and sign it." Critical illness notice? The parents were completely at a loss. They didn't expect that a coma would become a notice of critical illness. "What will happen if we don't sign it? We want to see our children," another parent asked. Chapter 660. Stay with Yao sis. The parents were in a mess with the notice, and Pengzhan was dumbfounded. He was no longer thinking about the impact this incident would have on the school. He was worried about his daughter. From Pengzhan's point of view, his daughter was more important than the company. He could lose the company, and he could always start over. Although he wasn't young anymore, he wasn't an old man either. He could still fight and fight. But if his daughter was gone, everything would be over, and life would lose its meaning. The doctor's words were like thunder. Pengzhan didn't expect this to happen to Mengyao. If he could, he would rather be the one who got sick instead of his daughter. While the parents were panicking, the happiest person was Dire Wolf. He finally thought of a breakthrough. Everyone look, how dangerous is Songshan's first school? There's an unknown virus, is it a biochemical base? Dire Wolf's voice rang again, even Chairman Chu's daughter couldn't escape. You can imagine how scary it is. The child fainted, and you can't even find the reason. Think about your child, she was happy and healthy when she went to school in the morning, but a few hours passed. What are you holding in your hands? Notice of critical illness. I'm not saying something unlucky, but there aren't many patients who survived after receiving this notice. This is too scary, especially when they don't even know how they died. The parents heard Direwolf's words, and they regretted sending their children to Songshan's first school. At first, they thought that Songshan's first school was the best school in the city, but they didn't expect their children to step on the road of death. Direwolf was overjoyed, and he quickly asked someone to record the scene with a recording pen and a camera. Although Pengzhan heard Direwolf's words, he didn't refute it, because his mind wasn't on it anymore. He was worried about Mingyao's safety, and he didn't have time to care about Direwolf's slandering of the company and the school. However, this allowed Direwolf to seize the opportunity. After a series of videos and incitement, those grieving parents began to criticize the management system of the school. Yao Yao sis will be fine. I want to see Yao Yao sis. Where is Yao Yao sis? I want to go. Yushu ran towards the emergency room's door abruptly. It was a long and narrow hallway, and at the very end of the emergency room was the infectious disease isolation room. A couple of nurses were spraying disinfectant around the room, and all of them froze when Yushu ran in. You. What are you doing? You can't come in. This is the infectious disease intensive care unit, get out of here. The nurse said, startled as she stopped Yushu. But why would Yushu listen? In her mind, there is only one thought, that is to not let anything happen to Yao Yao Jia. Even if something happens to Yao Yao Jia, she must accompany her. As for whether it was contagious or not, she did not care. The doctor at the door was also stunned by Yushu's actions. When he recovered from his shock, he quickly yelled at the door that was pushed open, "Come out, don't go in, it's dangerous." Yushu didn't listen. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but the two nurses weren't able to stop her. Yushu was already at the end of the corridor, and there was a row of isolation rooms, each with a large glass panel in front of it. Yushu quickly found Mingyao's isolation room. Ignoring the doctors' and nurses' shouts, she pushed the door open and rushed in. Yao Yao Jia, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Yushu ran to Mingyao's side, grabbed her hand, and started crying. With Yushu taking the lead, the rest of the parents also rushed in. After a slight hesitation, they found their children's isolation rooms and entered. In this situation, the hospital's nurses and doctors could only smile bitterly. They couldn't do anything about it. In fact, they understood these people's actions. They were worried about their children's safety. They didn't care whether it was contagious or not. Since you guys have entered, before the isolation is lifted, you can only stay in the hospital. The doctor stood in the corridor helplessly and shouted, "Your movement is temporarily restricted." The parents didn't care. They wanted to stay by their children's side. Even if they were asked to leave now, they wouldn't leave. Pengzhan and Faubert followed. Pengzhan entered Mingyao's isolation room, and Faubert followed without hesitation. This also showed how loyal Faubert was to Pengzhan. He was actually willing to risk his own life. Yao Yao. Miss Chu. Pengzhan and Faubert rushed to Mingyao's bedside. Seeing Yushu holding Mingyao's hand and crying, Pengzhan sighed. Yao Yao and Shu grew up together. They were very close. They weren't biological sisters, but they were closer than biological sisters. If anything happened to Yao Yao, Shu wouldn't feel better than him. She might not even be able to take it. Mingyao's face was very pale, without a trace of blood. There were a lot of wires connected to her body. Although Pengzhan couldn't understand the numbers on the screen, it couldn't be good. Shu, you should stay away from Yao Yao, don't let her get infected. As a senior, Pengzhan naturally had to remind Yushu. Otherwise, if Yushu really got infected, he would be sorry to Yushu's parents. No, I don't want to leave, I want to stay with Yao Yao sis. Yushu shook her head. I want to wait for Yao Yao sis to wake up. Pengzhan saw Yushu's determination. He didn't insist. Direwolf and the reporters saw that the parents entered the emergency room. They looked at each other. Those parents dared to go in, but they didn't. This infectious disease was not a joke. If he was not careful and got infected, wouldn't that be the end of him? But Direwolf was the leader, and more or less gave them some benefits, so it wasn't good to leave immediately. So he suggested, "Wolf bro, why don't you go in and interview them, we'll wait here." "Forget it, let's go." Dire Wolf was also a person who was afraid of death. How could he risk his life for 20,000 yuan? Shaking his head, he brought these people back. The current material was enough. Even if they didn't continue the interview, it was enough to write Pingzhan Industries into pieces. Chapter 661. Guan Xuemin's opponent. Because of the huge impact of this incident, the health department took it very seriously after the hospital reported it. They immediately gathered some famous doctors in the medical world to form a team of experts and rushed to Songshan's Second People's Hospital for a consultation. Guan Xuemin was one of the people in charge of this team of experts. He didn't usually make house calls, but this was a serious matter, and it was an unknown situation. Guan Xuemin was highly respected and experienced, so of course he had to participate. Soon, the entire team of experts entered the emergency room to analyze the patient's condition. I think this is an unknown new virus. Zhang Weikong, one of the people in charge of this team of experts and the president of the Medical Association, said, "We need to report this to the International Health Organization immediately and have them send foreign experts here for research." Dr. Zhang, isn't it too early to say that it's an unknown virus? Guan Xuemin had a different opinion. According to the school, all the students got sick at the same time, and the students who got sick only made up a small percentage of the entire school. If it's an acute infection caused by an unknown virus, then isn't the timing a little too coincidental? Could it be that the virus was arranged to infect all the students at the same time? Guan Xuemin's words were sharp, but he pointed out the crux of the matter, which was that this incident wasn't an unknown virus infection. But Guan Xuemin's last sentence was hilarious, and it made the experts burst into laughter. Zhang Weikong's expression changed. He and Guan Xuemin weren't on good terms. Although he was the president of Songshan's Medical Association, everyone in Songshan's medical field knew that Guan Xuemin was the best in the medical field. Then with Miracle Dr. Guan's wisdom, what's going on? Zhang Weikong laughed coldly, purposely calling Guan Xuemin Miracle Dr. Guan. It seemed like it wasn't a big deal since Guan Xuemin's company was called Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Company, but saying it at this time was very sarcastic. Guan Xuemin could hear the sarcasm in Zhang Weikong's tone, but he didn't care. He was a person of knowledge, and he didn't care about fame. This was also the reason why he refused to be an official in the Medical Association. Otherwise, Zhang Weikong wouldn't be the president of the Medical Association. Based on my experience, I think it's more likely that he was poisoned. My illness acted up not long after I had lunch, and the timing of my illness was very close. My current symptoms are similar to those of poisoning. Ha! Zhang Weikong laughed coldly and interrupted Xuemin. Miracle Dr. Guan's analysis is very insightful, but it's a shame that even though you're a miracle doctor, you should take a look at the case before expressing your opinion. Otherwise, not only will it waste our time, but it will also waste the patient's precious resuscitation time. The medical records clearly state that no toxic ingredients were detected in the food in their stomachs. May I ask how they got food poisoning? That's not surprising. What if the toxic substance has already been absorbed by the human body? Guan Xuemin wasn't angry at all. Academics needed to be skeptical, and he was happy to see people questioning him. Absorb? You mean, the patient only absorbed the poisonous substances and left the non-poisonous food in his stomach? Zhang Weikong laughed out loud. According to what you said, these people's stomach function is really strong, right? How could he tell if it was poisonous or not? And he purposely absorbed the poisonous ones? Zhang Weikong's words attracted some laughter, but these experts didn't help either side. They wouldn't get involved in a fight between gods. I've seen similar records in some ancient medical books. Guan Xuemin didn't mind and continued to explain, there are some poisons made from Chinese herbs and insects that can be quickly absorbed by the human body. Ancient medical books? Let's not talk about whether or not these books are fake. Even if they were real, how would we know if what was written in them was correct? Zhang Weikong obviously didn't believe Guan Xuemin's words. Don't forget, the hospital has already called the police. The police have sealed the cafeteria and tested the food in the cafeteria. They didn't find any toxic substances. Plus, there were so many students eating in the cafeteria, why were only these few poisoned? First of all, I can't deduce how they were poisoned. This is the police's job. What I'm saying is just my opinion, Guan Xuemin said. My opinion is to report this to the International Health Organization. This isn't something we can handle. If you insist that it's poison, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself. Zhang Weikong didn't want his reputation and future to be affected by these students. He didn't need to take any measures anyway. Reporting to the higher-ups was the easiest way. Someone else would take care of these things. Even if the students died, it had nothing to do with him. Guan Xuemin sighed. Although he had only seen similar information in ancient medical books, there wasn't any way to detoxify it. It was only listed as one of the ancient poisons, along with other poisons such as venomous insects. There was only a brief introduction, and it wasn't very detailed. Let's take a look at the patients first. Guan Xuemin sighed. No matter what, since he was here, he couldn't just do nothing, right? If you want to see them, go see them yourself. This is an infectious disease. Before we take preventive measures, it's better not to come into contact with the patients. Zhang Weikong didn't want to be infected by the virus. He was a person who was afraid of death. He had a bright future ahead of him. There was no need to lose his life for a few students. Of course, whoever wants to go can go. Among these experts, there were many responsible medical workers. At this moment, after hearing Zhang Weikong's words, they all showed an angry expression. If you're afraid of death, why are you a doctor? A doctor's job is to save lives, to fight on the front line of danger. In every profession, there were some black sheep. There were also some who had the same idea as Zhang Weikong. They hid their bodies and pretended not to care about their own affairs. Professor Guan, we'll go with you to see the patients. Many experts stood up and said to Guan Xuemin. Chapter 662. Ancient Strange Poison. Xuemin walked out of the meeting room and walked quickly to the emergency room. He was recognized by the doctors as soon as he reached the emergency room. Xuemin had a high reputation in Songshan's medical field, and some of these doctors were his students. Naturally, they were more respectful when they saw Xuemin. Professor Guan, you're here. Dr. Sun, who was in charge of the emergency room, was also Xuemin's student. He quickly welcomed Xuemin. Are you going to do a house visit? Yeah, I'll take a look. Xuemin nodded. Bring me there. I? Dr. Sun hesitated. If it was an acute infection, it would be very dangerous for Xuemin to go there. But he knew Xuemin's personality. He didn't care about life and death, so he only hesitated for a moment before bringing Xuemin to the isolation room. Among the parents, someone recognized Xuemin and shouted, "Miracle Dr. Guan is here. My child can be saved." What? Miracle Dr. Guan? Which Miracle Dr. Guan? Of course it's Guan Xuemin, Miracle Dr. Guan. Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company has been very famous recently. I heard that there are 2 special medicines that are going to hit the market soon. The parents were overjoyed when they heard that it was Xuemin. Xuemin's reputation was well known, and he had the title of Miracle Doctor. If he was here, then their children would definitely have hope. So all the parents rushed out and pulled Xuemin. Miracle Dr. Guan, please take a look at my child. Let my child take a look first, I beg you. Let my child take a look first. My family only has 1 son in 3 generations. Let my child take a look, I beg you, I'm begging you. I only have 1 daughter, and her mother died giving birth to her. I can't lose her. The parents were in a mess again. They all wanted Xuemin to treat their children first. Pengzhan could see everything clearly from the isolation room, but he didn't want to get involved. He was worried about Mingyao's safety, but the other parents were worried about their children as well. He was the chairman of the school, so how could he compete? Moreover, as long as the cause of the illness was found, it would be easy to treat it. Dr. Sun felt a headache when he saw the parents, but he said, "Everyone, please be quiet. You will only waste precious time like this. Let Professor Guan choose which room he wants to go to. As long as we find the cause of one disease, we can start to treat them in batches." Dr. Sun's words woke the parents up. They stopped talking and waited for Guan Xuemin to make his choice. Guan Xuemin didn't look at the expectant gazes of these parents. Instead, he casually walked into an isolation room closest to him. 2 of the parents were instantly overjoyed. Obviously, they were the parents of the children in the ward. Guan Xuemin ignored these people and went to the unconscious student's side. Soon, he was in the zone. 10 minutes later, Guan Xuemin shook his head. The patient's pulse was very weak, which meant that the patient's physiological functions were weakening. The patient's vital signs were also very weak. If this continued, the patient would die by tomorrow at the latest. But there was nothing Guan Xuemin could do. This kind of weakness was similar to an old man at the end of his life. It was as if he had used up all of his life force and was walking towards the end of his life. Theoretically speaking, there was no way to save him. But the patient was only a child in his teens. He wasn't an old man at all. It was very strange for this to happen. Nothing had happened before. Suddenly, he became like this. If he wasn't poisoned, then what was it? Guan Xuemin's heart was even more determined. As for the so-called bacterial infection, Guan Xuemin didn't really believe it. It was just a possibility. Poisoned. 1,000-year-old poison. Did such a poison really exist? If it did, how did these children get poisoned? Who was the culprit? Was it unintentional or intentional? Guan Xuemin couldn't figure it out. At this moment, he was trying his best to recall the ancient book that he had read. He wanted to recall the antidote from it, but helplessly, Guan Xuemin couldn't think of a similar explanation no matter how hard he racked his brain. Did he really have to give up? There were 28 children here. Guan Xuemin really didn't want to see them die just like that. Suddenly, a person appeared in Guan Xuemin's mind. Guan Xuemin took out his phone and dialed a number. At this moment, he could only ask for help. Other than that, there was no other way. Linny took his clothes and phone and left Jiang Wen's kidney trafficking company headquarters. Jiang Wen's headquarters was in the suburbs. Usually, there weren't many cars passing by here. If Linny wanted to go back to school, he could only walk to the bus station near the suburbs and take a taxi or bus. While waiting for the taxi, Linny took out his phone to check the time. He realized that there were a few missed calls. Linny suddenly remembered that before he pretended to be unconscious, Linny set his phone to vibrate so that Jiang Wen wouldn't take the call out. He forgot to turn it back after he left the kidney trafficking company. He checked the caller ID and realized that they were all from Yushu. Linny didn't know why Yushu was looking for him. There were more than 10 calls. Could it be that the miss was looking for him? Linny's heart skipped a beat as he recalled the fight between Meng Yao and Tang Yun. Could it be that the miss and Tang Yun were fighting again? Thinking about this, Linny quickly called back. The sudden ringing shocked Yushu. Pengzhan and Faubert were also shocked. Meng Yao took out her phone and looked at the caller ID. It was Linny. She quickly picked up the phone. Shield bro, where did you go? Why didn't you pick up? Yao Yao sis is going to die soon. Sob sob sob, you didn't pick up my calls. I've decided not to be with you anymore. Meng Yao was going to die? Linny was shocked. Meng Yao was still fine when he left. He had only left for a few hours and Meng Yao was going to die? What had happened in the middle of this? Shoo, don't panic. What happened to Yao Yao? Where are you guys? Linny asked. We are in the emergency room of Songshan's second hospital. Come quickly, Shield bro. If Yao Yao sis dies, I don't want to live anymore. Yushu was panicking, but the fact that she could contact Linny gave her some hope. In Yushu's mind, Shield bro seemed to be able to do anything. Chapter 663. Speed car, okay. Yushu knew that explaining the situation to Linny would save them some time, and so she told Linny about what happened in the cafeteria. Linny, on the other hand, frowned after listening to Yushu's story. Meng Yao just fainted out of nowhere? Linny couldn't make a judgment based on Yushu's words, so he decided to go to the hospital first. Sir, can you please drive faster? Linny was worried about the Miss's safety. Living with the Miss every day made Linny develop some feelings for the Miss. Although Lin Yi's master and old Lin had trained him to be a little cold-blooded, he wasn't a plant or a tree. Meng Yao wasn't just his employer. Linny saw her as a friend. Otherwise, Linny wouldn't be in such a rush. He was Meng Yao's follower, but he wasn't her personal doctor. Pengzhan didn't tell him that he was obligated to take care of Meng Yao's illness. But the situation was different. Linny was worried about the Miss from the bottom of his heart, so he urged the driver to go faster. They were still quite a distance away from Songshan Songshan Hospital, and it would take at least an hour at their current speed. Kid, this car of mine is 5 years old, and it's not working well anymore. It's dangerous to drive fast, and I don't dare to drive fast. The driver smiled bitterly. I know you're in a rush to get to the hospital, so how about this? I'll drive to a place with more cars, and you can switch to another car? As for the fare, it's up to you whether you want to pay or not. Linny couldn't help but shake his head at the driver's words. They were still quite a distance away from the city, and Linny couldn't wait any longer. Let me drive, I'll pay you the fare, and I'll pay you an extra 500. Linny took out his wallet and counted out 700 kwai, putting it on the dashboard. It was about 200 kwai to get to the hospital from here, so 700 was already a lot for Linny. The driver hesitated for a moment before asking, Young man, do you have a driver's license? Yes. Linny took out his driver's license from his wallet and showed it to the driver. Okay, then you drive. The driver gladly took the 700 yuan and parked the car on the side of the road. It was Lin Yi's turn to drive. The driver was also very clear. Even if Lin Yi's way of driving wasted some gas, the money would be enough. Even the money for the violation of the law was included, so why not? After Lin Yi got in the car, he started the car, put it in gear, and released the clutch in one go. After the car rushed out, the next thing he did was to constantly change gears and accelerate. Lin Yi's driving style gave the driver a shock. How long had it been? Lin Yi had already put it in gear 5, and he kept stepping on the accelerator. The car was like a runaway horse that was galloping. Although this was a suburban road, and there were no cars, the speed limit here was 80 kilometers per hour. If there was a speed camera recording of Lin Yi driving like this, he would have been recorded. Fortunately, there were no cameras on this road. However, after Lin Yi entered the city, his speed didn't decrease. Instead, he kept accelerating. Seeing that there were more and more cars, the driver quickly said, "Young man, slow down. It's dangerous. Besides, there is a post in front. There are policemen. You won't be able to hit them," Lin Yi said faintly. He was still accelerating. The car was like an afterimage, shuttling through the traffic nimbly. As soon as Lin Yi finished speaking, the car completed a drift, and the driver was so scared that his heart almost exploded. Drift? It can't be, right? I usually only see it on TV. I didn't expect my broken car to be able to drift. Was this guy a professional racer? As he was thinking, police sirens came from all around the car. Evidently, the surveillance center saw something strange here and sent people to intercept him. "Young man, the police are here. Stop the car." The driver was so scared that he quickly said. He was done for. Wouldn't the car be impounded? This 700 RMB wasn't even enough to pay the fine. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He didn't expect the police to react so quickly. They locked onto his location in such a short amount of time. Lin Yi had no choice but to call Lingshan. Fortunately, Lingshan wasn't in the headquarters of the kidney trafficking organization, and her phone had signal. Lin Yi dialed her number. "Hello? Lingshan?" Lin Yi didn't wait for her to speak and said directly, "My car is being targeted by the police. I need to go to the hospital to save someone. Inform them to pull back." Lingshan received the call from Lin Yi. She thought that Lin Yi was calling to ask if he had destroyed the kidney trafficking organization's HQ. She didn't expect it to be something else. But this time, Lingshan didn't feel angry at Lin Yi's order. She didn't ask much and only asked, "What's your car number?" "What's your car number?" Lin Yi asked the driver. Song at 8224. The driver was shocked. This guy knew Lingshan? Actually, the driver shouldn't know the name Lingshan based on his profession. But when he listened to the news on the radio, he heard about the new captain of the criminal investigation team, Lingshan, solving the bank robbery case and capturing the bank robbers. That was why he had an impression. A while ago, she caught another criminal, and this made the driver feel that this captain of the criminal investigation team was very capable, so he remembered the name. But what he didn't expect was that Lin Yi knew Lingshan, and his tone wasn't polite at all. Who was this guy? Lin Yi didn't have time to think about what the driver was thinking. He told Lingshan the car number directly. Lingshan remembered the car number and called the Traffic Police Command Center. She couldn't just ignore Lin Yi's matter. Besides, Lin Yi had made it very clear that he was going to the hospital to save people. Wait, hospital to save people? Lingshan suddenly remembered the report from her subordinates. There was a mass coma in Songshan's first school. But because she was busy with the kidney trafficking organization case, she sent one of her team leaders to the school to investigate. Could it be that Lin Yi was going to save those poisoned students? Thinking that Lin Yi was also a student of Songshan's first school, and he was hired by Pingzhan, it made sense that he was going to save people. But this wasn't Lingshan's area of responsibility, so she didn't ask much. Suddenly, Lingshan remembered that Lin Yi didn't call her Miss Brain Dead, but called her by her name. Lingshan's heart skipped a beat for no reason. Was Lin Yi in a hurry and didn't have time to tease her, or did his attitude towards her change? Chapter 664. Just how strong was he? Lin Yi drove past another street, and the sirens of the police cars disappeared. Evidently, they had been notified. The driver was very impressed with Lin Yi, and it wasn't until Lin Yi stopped the car in front of the hospital that the driver came back to his senses. This was a driving god. He looked at the time, 19 minutes. It was a miracle, unbelievable. He never thought that his old car, which cost tens of thousands of kuai for 5 years, had the potential to be a sports car, or even faster than a sports car. Lin Yi's phone rang again when he got out of the car. He'd thought it was Yushu asking if he'd arrived, but it was Xu Emin. Linny picked up the phone as he walked into the hospital. "Hello, Grandpa Guan, what's up?" Linny was worried about the Mrs. well-being, and so he remained polite to Guan Xu Emin, but he was still a little impatient. He wanted to finish the call as soon as possible. Where are you? Can you come over if you don't have anything to do?" Guan Xu Emin could hear the urgency in Lin Yi's voice. Something must have happened to Lin Yi, and it made his heart tighten. If Lin Yi couldn't come, then there was no hope at all. "I'm at Songshan's second hospital, my friend is in trouble, and I'm in a rush. I'm afraid I don't have time." Lin Yi replied quickly. "I'm sorry, Grandpa Guan, I'll call you when I'm done, okay?" Lin Yi pushed the door open and rushed into the emergency room. A doctor wanted to stop Lin Yi, but who knew that Lin Yi would be so fast? He went in the blink of an eye. Guan Xu Emin froze when he heard Lin Yi's word. Lin Yi was at Songshan's second hospital too? Also, why was there an echo when Lin Yi spoke? Guan Xu Emin raised his head and saw a figure dashing towards him. Who else could it be but Lin Yi? Lin Yi is here? Could it be that Lin Yi's friend was one of the poisoned students? Guan Xu Emin heaved a sigh of relief when he thought of this possibility. If that was the case, then there was hope for these students. Xu Emin hurriedly got up and followed. Lin Yi was surprised to hear someone call his name. He listened carefully and it was still Xu Emin's voice. Lin Yi looked at the phone beside his ear. It didn't seem to be coming from the phone, but from behind him. Lin Yi turned around and said in surprise, "Grandpa Guan? Why are you here? Is your friend one of the unconscious students?" Guan Xu Emin did not answer Lin Yi's question, but asked anxiously. "Oh?" Lin Yi paused for a moment, then understood. "I see. Grandpa Guan, you called me here for the students, right? But it doesn't matter if you know anyone here, I have to go see my friend first. I'm sorry, I'll be there after I'm done." Lin Yi politely stated his standpoint. Xu Emin was close to him, but since it wasn't Guan Xu Emin who had fainted, Lin Yi still had to go see the miss first. "Haha, I don't know anyone here. Go see your friend first, we can save them as long as we know the cause of their fainting. I'm just here to treat them." Xu Emin waved his hand, signaling Lin Yi to calm down and focus on treating his friend. Lin Yi nodded, so Xu Emin was worried about the student's condition. He had misunderstood him. "All right, I'll go see my friend first." Lin Yi nodded and started looking for Mingyao's room. He didn't walk far before he saw Pengzhan, Faubert, and Yushu in one of the rooms. This was obviously Mingyao's isolation room. Lin Yi pushed the door open and walked in. Pengzhan didn't know much about Lin Yi's medical skills. When Xu called Lin Yi, Pengzhan thought that Xu was just trying to find a doctor in a desperate situation. He didn't really think that Lin Yi could cure his daughter's illness. Faubert, on the other hand, was deep in thought. He knew that Lin Yi wasn't simple. He killed 2 golden class masters, so how strong must he be? In the beginning, Faubert suspected that Lin Yi was a golden class late phase, but a few days ago, he heard that Lin Yi and Uncle Zhu, who was working for Zhao Qibing, exchanged a palm strike. Faubert was shocked. Naturally, Faubert had heard of Uncle Zhu's name before. Back in the days, Uncle Zhu, Zhu Laolu, was a famous figure, with the strength of an early phase mystic class. Basically, he didn't have many opponents. Later, he heard that he was recruited by a family, but he didn't think that he would become Zhao Qibing's follower. For a master like that, even if he didn't break through in the past 10 years, it was impossible for his strength to deteriorate. He was definitely at the early phase mystic class. But after Lin Yi exchanged a palm strike with him, it was as if nothing had happened. He didn't seem to be injured at all. This surprised Faubert. Just how strong was Lin Yi? Was he a mystic class early phase as well? Only a mystic class master of the same level could fight Uncle Zhu head-on. Of course, if Lin Yi was a mystic class mid-phase, he would definitely be able to kill Uncle Zhu even if he didn't have the upper hand. Now that Uncle Zhu wasn't dead, and Lin Yi wasn't injured, it was strange. If Lin Yi was much stronger than Uncle Zhu, it was possible that he wasn't injured. But if Lin Yi was much stronger than Uncle Zhu, would Uncle Zhu still be alive? He would probably be dead by now, right? Even a mystic class mid-phase could kill an opponent in a head-on clash like this. Of course, he would be injured. But Lin Yi wasn't injured, and he didn't kill Uncle Zhu. The only possibility was that either Lin Yi didn't use his full strength, or Lin Yi's medical skills were superb, and he healed Uncle Zhu himself. Faubert felt that the first possibility was less likely. After all, Lin Yi was furious at that time. Why would he show mercy? After he broke Zhao Qibing's leg, he still had other things to do to Zhao Qibing. If he didn't care about Uncle Zhu at all, he could still continue to attack Zhao Qibing after killing Uncle Zhu. But Lin Yi didn't do that and chose to leave. Most importantly, Linny was indeed injured that night, and he was treated at Fatty Lie's house. Although Faubert didn't know what happened, and he didn't see how serious Linny's injury was, he could guess that it wasn't light. Because of this, Faubert suspected that Linny's medical skills were superb as well. Chapter 665. Both are possible, Professor Guan, Lil E, you're here. Although Pengzhan noticed this detail, Linny was still a junior to him, and they were familiar with each other, so he put Xuemin before him. I came with Lil E to see if he can. Xuemin was a scholar, and he didn't care about his reputation. Linny was better than him, and he wouldn't hide it. But Yushu interrupted him before he could finish. Shield bro, you're finally here. Quick, take a look at Yao Yao, you have to cure her. Yushu looked at Linny as if he was her savior. She grabbed Linny and pulled him to Mengyao's bedside. Okay. Linny nodded, his face serious as he held Mengyao's hand and checked her pulse. She was very weak, like an old man on the verge of death. But from Jiao Yazi's perspective, Mengyao's energy was disappearing at a rapid rate, and the moment it completely disappeared would be the moment her life came to an end. Linny frowned. This situation was very strange, and there were many possibilities for this to happen. First, it could be a physical problem, like a natural disease, but Mengyao obviously didn't have that. Second, it could be a malignant disease, like cancer, but Mengyao didn't look like a cancer patient at all. Other than that, there were two less common possibilities. First, she was injured by a master, and her internal organs were damaged. That was why her life was disappearing so quickly. Second, it could be poisoning. Some poisons could also destroy the body's physiological functions, causing a person to die quickly. Linny didn't look at the case, and he didn't have the time to do so. He only asked Xuemin, Grandpa Guan, what do you think? Xuemin replied quickly when he heard Lin Yi's question. The experts have two guesses. First, she's infected with some unknown bacteria, and second, she's poisoned. Bacteria? Poisoned? Lin Yi nodded. Both are possible. Both are possible? Guan Xuemin was surprised. He didn't expect Lin Yi to agree with the germ theory. I have carefully studied voodoo. In fact, many voodoo are a type of bacteria, and people who are poisoned by voodoo will also have the same situation. Linny said, but in the end, it is still poisoning. Voodoo can also be considered poison. I see. Guan Xuemin hadn't thought about the goo poison, but after hearing Lin Yi's words, he understood. It seemed like he had been a little paranoid, and Zhang Weikong's words weren't without reason. Of course, Zhang Weikong was lucky, and he didn't expect that. Linny was just guessing. He wasn't absolutely sure if Mengyao was poisoned or not, but according to the current situation, waking Mengyao up wasn't a difficult task, but waking her up wasn't something that could be maintained. Master Guan, is there anything wrong with the food in your stomach? Linny had the same guess, but he still asked. No. Guan Xuemin said, at least from the current test results, there is no poison. But there are some herbs or bugs that can't be detected with chemical methods. Linny nodded. I know that, I've done some research on poisons. Tang's poison scripture basically covers all the poisons in the world and the ways to detoxify them. It could be said that Linny was very knowledgeable about poisons, and this was also related to his old man. Linny didn't understand why his old man was so interested in poisons and voodoo, but Linny was also very knowledgeable about poisons and detoxification. Tang's poison scripture? You've read Tang's poison scripture? Guan Xuemin's face changed drastically as he looked at Linny in disbelief. In the ancient book that he had read before, when it mentioned the ancient poison, it also mentioned the famous Tang sect poison scripture, from ancient times to the present. Tang's poison scripture, as the name suggested, was one of the secret manuals of the Tang sect. The Tang sect was located in Sichuan, also known as the Tang family fortress. The Tang sect was famous for their poison. However, it had been lost in history, and only appeared in some wuxia novels and TV dramas. Whether or not the sect really existed was still unknown. As a result, Guan Xuemin wasn't sure if the Tang sect poison classic mentioned in the ancient book actually existed. This type of ancient medical book was not an orthodox medical literature, but rather an anecdote. The things mentioned in it were all strange things, some were true, some were false, so there was no way to judge. Yes. Linny nodded. Tang's poison scripture wasn't the only one in his house. There were also many other books related to poison, such as the 5 poison scripture. Guan Xuemin was excited. Could it be that Linny really came from an ancient medical family? Why did he see so many medical books that were lost in history? Of course, Guan Shuemi knew that this wasn't the time to ask about this. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, "Do you have a way to cure her?" "As long as she's poisoned, there should be a way. I'll give it a try." Lin Yi didn't make any promises. Although when he left the mountain, old Lin had said that he had already learned 1/3 of his skills, which was enough for him to dominate the martial arts world. Lin Yi wasn't an arrogant person. Who knew if he could cure her? However, Lin Yi wasn't worried about Mingyao's safety. As long as he kept transferring pure energy into her body, the energy that Zhao Yazi mentioned, he could keep her alive indefinitely. Even if he couldn't cure her, he could still bring her to old Lin and save her. Although old Lin kept bragging about being the world's #1 miracle doctor, Lin Yi knew that old Lin had the ability to do so. He, on the other hand, was still one level lower. Lin Yi silently channeled the art of dragon mastery and transferred the energy into Mingyao's body. Fortunately, Mingyao's body wasn't like Xiaoxiao's, a bottomless pit that sucked Lin Yi dry, even causing him to lose a level. Mengyao was a normal person, so the amount of energy she needed was very little. To Lin Yi, it was nothing more than a drop in the ocean. Lin Yi let out a breath of relief. If Mengyao had really sucked all his energy dry like Xiaoxiao did, then it wouldn't be realistic to extend her life. He needed time to recover, right? Chapter 666. Healed in an instant. Mengyao opened her eyes and looked at Yushu confusedly. She felt as if she had just woken up from a nap, and now she was full of energy and an indescribable sense of comfort. "Shu, did I fall asleep? Huh? Where is this? Isn't this the classroom? Oh. Yao sis, you're finally awake. That's great, I was worried to death." Yushu didn't answer Mingyao's question. She held Mingyao's hand and cheered happily. Oh. Shield bro is so amazing. I've decided, I'll continue to be with you." With that, Yushu suddenly hugged Lin Yi and kissed him on the cheek. Lin Yi was startled, but he didn't think much of it when he saw the excited Yushu. Yushu was always like this, crazy and crazy. Pengzhan and Faubert didn't think much of it. All of their attention was on Mengyao. "Yao, you're finally awake. That's great. How do you feel?" Pengzhan didn't expect Lin Yi to really wake Mengyao up. This was completely out of his expectations. What confused him was that Lin Yi didn't seem to have done anything at all. All he did was hold Mengyao's hand, and Mengyao woke up after a while. Xuemin was shocked as well. Xuemin, on the other hand, was shocked as well. What had Lin Yi done? How did he make a person on the verge of death suddenly become so energetic? This was a miracle in the history of medicine. Only Faubert was deep in thought. He could roughly guess what Lin Yi did, but he didn't dare to believe it. But other than that, there was no other explanation. In the Wulin world, there was the concept of energy transfer. It referred to a person's energy, or qi, being transferred to another person through a special method. This usually happened when one of them was too heavily injured. In order to save him, the other person could only transfer his own true qi to him. Of course, there was a limit to the power imparting. The person imparting the power and the person being imparted had to be practicing the same type of cultivation technique. If the cultivation technique was different, the Jinqi in the body would naturally be different as well. Imparting power imparting rashly would not only fail to save the person, but even the person imparting the power might suffer a backlash. How did Lin Yi do it? Besides, it was one thing if Mengyao was a practitioner of martial arts. Although the practitioner's qi was different, there were still some similarities. The problem was that Mengyao was a normal person. How did Lin Yi pass his qi to her? Faubert was really shocked. Of course, he also understood that this kind of thing might involve the secret of the sect. It was taboo for martial artists to ask about the things of their sect. Naturally, Faubert would not ask about it. Even if he was curious, he could only keep it in his heart. "I'm fine, and I feel like I'm full of energy. Why am I here?" Mengyao felt strange. Why did she feel like she was lying in the hospital? Dad and Faubert came to see her? Wasn't she in school? "Yao sis, we were talking at noon, and then you fainted. I was scared to death, so I sent you to the school's sick bay. A lot of students fainted." Yushu said, "Don't you remember?" "I think I remember a little. I was so tired that I fell asleep." Mengyao recalled the scene, and it seemed like it was true. Yeah, those doctors even gave you a notice of critical condition. What a mess." Yushu said angrily, "I thought I would never see you again, but Shield Bro came and cured you in an instant. Those quacks, I'll scold them later." Haha. Mengyao saw that Yushu was so worried about her, and her heart warmed. She was just curious about the doctor giving her a notice of critical condition. Naturally, she wouldn't think that those doctors were quacks like Yushu. There must be a reason for them to do this. Perhaps Linny curing her wasn't as simple as Yushu made it out to be. Mengyao looked at Linny gratefully. Thank you, Linny. It's nothing. Linny smiled bitterly. Mengyao waking up was only temporary, after all. Linny could feel the energy draining from Mengyao's body, and the speed could only be described as terrifying. It wouldn't be long before Mengyao fainted again. Why don't you take a look at the other students? Xuemin asked. Yeah, Lil can you help the other students too? Pengzhan knew that Lin Yi's actions weren't as simple as they seemed to be after his daughter woke up. He didn't know if Lin Yi would be willing to go save someone else, and so Pengzhan only used a negotiating tone to ask. The cheers in Mengyao's room attracted the attention of the parents in the other rooms. When they walked out and saw that Mengyao had woken up, they rushed into the room. Godly doctor, please save our child, I beg you. Yeah, miracle doctor, I'm begging you, please save our children. They didn't see who it was that saved Mengyao, but they were sure that it was one of the people in the room, so they called him a miracle doctor. The hospital had already issued a notice of critical condition anyways, so who could save a person in such a situation, if not a miracle doctor, then what was? Linny looked at the parents, then at Pengzhan, and immediately understood why Pengzhan wanted him to save the students. If something really happened to these students, Pengzhan's school and company would be implicated. What Pengzhan and Linny didn't know was that the direwolf had gone back to the newspaper office and made a report, requesting for an extra edition of the newspaper to include the school's poisoning incident. He also wanted to update the newspaper's online version with this explosive news. This third-rate newspaper was privately owned, and it wasn't very famous. The editor was just worrying about how to increase the popularity of the newspaper, and suddenly seeing such explosive news, of course, he wouldn't let go of this opportunity to hype up. So he decided to let Direwolf follow up on this matter, reporting the progress of the investigation on the internet and the newspaper at the same time. Direwolf was overjoyed, and the title was Unknown Virus Flooding Songshan's First School, Horror Campus, or Biohazard Crisis. The report immediately went viral on the internet. One had to admit that Direwolf was very cunning, and his title was very eye-catching. The content was even more amazing, turning a news report into a horror novel, analyzing the possibility of 28 students suddenly fainting in the school. The appearance of unknown bacteria caused a new wave of infectious diseases. Chapter 667. Tang Yun's hesitation. Some even said that the school was actually a biochemical base with a lot of viruses planted inside. These students accidentally touched the source of the virus and the biochemical crisis broke out. Of course, this was all written in a speculative tone. It was just Direwolf's personal hypothesis. If you want to say that he was slandering, it was very clear that this was just speculation. All the truth was waiting for the police to investigate. This way, no one could find fault with it. Finally, Direwolf also used a warning tone to write that this kind of scary school, even the daughter of the school's chairman couldn't escape. Who would dare to send their own children there? Today's 28 students, will they be your children tomorrow? Cherish your life, stay away from the first school. As soon as Direwolf's report came out, the parents of the first school students were instantly in an uproar. They all rushed to the school to ask for their children to go home. The report made it very clear that under such circumstances, who would dare to continue studying here? What if the one who fainted tomorrow was their own child? The principal and the dean were not in the school, only the vice principal was there. He couldn't stop these parents. After all, if the parents wanted to bring their children home, he couldn't just reject them, right? Therefore, most of the students in the school were gone. The number of students left was less than a third, and they couldn't continue classes. The vice principal could only announce a temporary suspension of classes, and all students could go home. Linny wasn't there, so Kang Xiaobo went to find Lu Xinwen and Tang Yun. Lu Xinwen and Tang Yun's families didn't come to the school. Tang Yun's parents were both in the hospital, and Lu Xinwen's parents were busy discussing the demolition strategy. Did boss contact you? Kang Xiaobo asked Tang Yun. No. Tang Yun shook her head, he's busy. Tang Yun didn't want to be treated as a girl who was always monitoring Lin Yi's movements. Since Lin Yi didn't say anything, she naturally wouldn't take the initiative to call him. Tang Yun, sis-in-law, do you know? Meng Yao is one of the 28 unconscious students, and the hospital has already sent out a notice of critical condition. I don't think she'll make it past tomorrow. No one will be able to compete with you anymore. Kang Xiaobo said in a low voice. Kang Xiaobo was there when Yushu ran out of the classroom with Meng Yao on her back, but he didn't know what was going on at the time. Kang Xiaobo only knew that Meng Yao had fainted after the news spread. Although Meng Yao was beautiful, and Kang Xiaobo didn't want anything to happen to Meng Yao, he was a man with a girlfriend now, and he was on Tang Yun's side. Of course, he didn't want Meng Yao to hurt Tang Yun. If Meng Yao really died, it would be pitiful, but Tang Yun wouldn't be a threat anymore. Ah? Is she also unconscious? Tang Yun was stunned after hearing Kang Xiaobo's words. She didn't think that Meng Yao would be one of the unconscious students. Although Tang Yun didn't like Meng Yao, it didn't mean that she wanted Meng Yao to die. She just didn't like Meng Yao's high and mighty attitude, but if something happened to Meng Yao, Tang Yun would still sympathize with her. After all, Meng Yao was only 19, it was the prime of her life. Yeah, I saw it with my own eyes. Sigh, life is really unpredictable. Kang Xiaobo sighed. Meng Yao was still arguing with Tang Yun in the afternoon, and in the blink of an eye, she was lying in the hospital. Tang Yun was hesitant, really hesitant. When Tang Yun heard that Meng Yao fainted and was admitted to the hospital, her first thought was that Lin Yi was a skilled doctor, and he should have a solution. But, asking Lin Yi to treat her rival in love? Tang Yun felt awkward, and she didn't feel comfortable. But, she couldn't just leave Meng Yao to die, could she? A rival in love was a rival in love, and she had a fair competition. She didn't have to be afraid of her. She was Lin Yi's girlfriend now, and this was her advantage. She was only Lin Yi's employer. Thinking of this, Tang Yun felt relieved. Should she call Lin Yi? After all, Meng Yao was his employer. Since she knew, how could she just leave Meng Yao to die? Yun, what's wrong? Are you worried about Meng Yao? Lu Xinwen saw Tang Yun's hesitation and couldn't help but ask. Xinwen, I need to tell this to Lin Yi. He has medical skills, and he should be able to cure Meng Yao. I can't just leave her to die, Tang Yun said as she took out her phone. The phone was smashed once, but it wasn't damaged. Only the paint on the back was chipped. Ah? Yun, are you stupid? Meng Yao died, and there's no one to compete with you. Why do you still want Lin Yi to treat her? Lu Xinwen looked at Tang Yun strangely. She wanted to touch her forehead to see if she had a fever. Xinwen, this is a different matter. She is competing with me, and I'm not afraid of her. I can't just leave her to die like this. Tang Yun bit her lips. Although she said she wasn't afraid, she was still a little nervous. After all, Meng Yao's appearance wasn't inferior to hers, and she had a good family background. Plus, she said that the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. So, the starting line between the two could be said to be the same. The most important problem was that Meng Yao had Yushu by her side. Yushu wanted to be the second wife, and she even wanted to play 3P. Although Tang Yun was pure, she wasn't completely clueless. She knew what 3P was. She had heard the boys in her class talk about it before, and it seemed to be very attractive to them. She didn't know if Lin Yi would be able to resist the temptation. Hey, look, you don't mean it. Lu Xinwen saw the flicker in Tang Yun's eyes. She shook her head, but do what you want. If you want to fight, then fight. Okay. Tang Yun nodded and dialed Lin Yi's number. Lin Yi looked at the students' parents who rushed in. He didn't know how to explain it to them. Logically speaking, since Pengzhan had already spoken, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't shirk his responsibility. But at this moment, Lin Yi didn't have a real solution. Lin Yi sighed. Just when he was about to speak, his phone rang. This saved Lin Yi. He looked at Pengzhan apologetically and picked up the phone. Tang Yun, what's wrong? When Tang Yun had nothing to do, she usually wouldn't call him during the day. Even if she had something to do, it would be through text. Lin Yi, where are you? I heard that Meng Yao fainted and was sent to the hospital. Hurry and save her. Tang Yun gritted her teeth and said. Chapter 668. Can't save her. Alright, I'm hanging up. Tang Yun didn't want to say anything else. Alright, I got it. Lin Yi smiled. Lin Yi was standing right beside Meng Yao, so she heard everything Lin Yi said. Even she herself was in disbelief. She never thought that Tang Yun would call Lin Yi and ask Lin Yi to save her. Miss felt bad. She was a cold person on the outside but warm on the inside. Even if she was a little arrogant, it was formed after living in a family like this. It wasn't a big problem. She was a kind person. Miss felt guilty when she heard that Tang Yun was worried about her. If she were Tang Yun, would she ask Lin Yi to save her? Would she? She didn't know. In actuality, Meng Yao would have asked Lin Yi to save Jiang Wen as well, just like the first time she met Jiang Wen at the theme park. Meng Yao didn't like Jiang Wen's pursuit of her, but she couldn't just stand by and watch him die when he was acting up. From this point, it could be seen that Tang Yun and Miss had something in common. They were both kind-hearted people. Thank her for me. Miss wanted to thank Tang Yun before Linny hung up, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. She waited until Linny hung up. Huh. Okay. Linny nodded. Linny would be happy to see Miss target Tang Yun less in the future. When Linny was on the phone, the parents didn't dare to disturb him. They had heard from Pengzhan and Guan Xuemin that the person who saved Meng Yao was this ridiculously young man in front of them. So when Linny hung up, he was surrounded by the parents. Miracle Doctor, can you please take a look at my child? Don't hesitate to ask for the medical fees. As long as the chairman can afford it, we'll pay for it even if we have to sell everything we have. The parent thought that Linny was a miracle doctor invited by Pengzhan. Yeah. Please save our children. We won't let you do it for free. Another parent said. My family runs a company. Although it's not as big as Chairman Chu, we still have millions of assets. As long as you save my child, you can ask for as much as you want. A well-dressed parent also said. It's not that I don't want to save him, but I can't. Linny had a headache and could only tell the truth. Ah? The parents froze, including Xuemin and Pengzhan. They didn't know what Linny meant by that. Couldn't be saved? Linny doesn't want to make a move? Faubert, on the other hand, was guessing that Linny might really have used his own qi to awaken Meng Yao. However, this method had a huge impact on one's strength. If it wasn't someone important, no one would sacrifice their own strength to save someone else. Faubert was a physical practitioner. He didn't have qi in his body, but even if he did, he wouldn't use his own strength to save someone unless Pengzhan or Meng Yao were injured. But now, Pengzhan and Xuemin were asking Linny to save someone else. It was obvious that they were making things difficult for Linny. Miracle Doctor, you can't just leave them to die. Yeah, that's not how a miracle doctor should act. The parents panicked, but they didn't dare to say anything too overboard. After all, Linny didn't have any obligation to save them. They were complimenting Linny, but at the same time, they wanted Linny to save them. I've said it before, it's not that I'm leaving them to die. It's just that I can't do anything right now. Linny shook his head. Can't do anything? But you've already saved Chairman Chu's daughter. Yeah, Miracle Doctor, didn't you already cure Meng Yao? The parents didn't believe Linny's words. They thought that Linny was just refusing to save Meng Yao. Oh no, Yao Yao sis fainted again. Yushu suddenly screamed, pulling Meng Yao's hand in panic. She looked at Linny, shield bro, come quick. Why did Yao Yao sis faint again? Yushu's scream startled Pengzhan, Li Fu, and Guan Xuemin. The parents, on the other hand, didn't know what to do as they looked at the unconscious Meng Yao, not knowing what was going on. You guys saw it for yourself, I didn't save her. I only woke her up temporarily. Linny smiled bitterly. He grabbed Meng Yao's hand and checked her pulse. It was very weak, almost the same as when he first saw her. Even if she was a little stronger, it wouldn't be by much. Meng Yao's energy had been depleted, and there wasn't much left. But the good thing was that after fainting, her energy consumption was much slower than before. Even so, she wouldn't be able to live past tomorrow. Ah? The parents finally understood what Linny meant. Linny didn't actually cure Meng Yao, he only woke her up. What's going on? Xuemin and Pengzhan looked at Linny, not quite sure what was going on. Shield bro, what do we do now? Why did Yao Yao sis faint again? Is she going to be okay? Yushu was panicking. She'll be fine for now, but I still need to think about how to save her. Can you guys please leave? Linny looked at the parents in the ward and said, after I find a way to save her, your child's symptoms will naturally be cured. Linny's words made the parents feel more at ease. At least Linny wasn't ignoring them. Since that was the case, they naturally didn't dare to disturb Linny anymore. They quickly left the ward, giving Linny some space to think. Pengzhan hesitated for a while and said, should we leave too? Not for now. Linny shook his head. He was very anxious. Although Linny was quite knowledgeable about poisons and antidotes, he lacked experience. Because of his years of training outside, Linny didn't have much time to learn about poisons and antidotes. He had a body full of theoretical knowledge, but he didn't know where to start. Right now, he didn't know what poison Meng Yao was poisoned with, and he didn't know where the source of the poison came from. He could only start from Meng Yao's body. If he was poisoned, how would the old man treat him? Linny frowned and started thinking about the old man's treatment methods. When he was young, he was bitten by poisonous insects, and his life was in danger. At that time, the old man didn't know where the source of the poison came from, and he couldn't tell what the poison was from the symptoms. Chapter 669. Finally found a way. However, Linny was a little discouraged. Acupuncture was a universal method, but the effect was different depending on the target. He was a practitioner, and his body and willpower were much stronger than a normal person. Hence, he could use acupuncture to expel the poison. The so-called acupuncture to expel poison was to use acupuncture to drive the genuine qi in the whole body, using the genuine qi to force the poison in the body to one place, and finally to expel it from the body through urine. This process was extremely painful, and it was very demanding on the physical fitness of the person being acupuncture. If the person could not withstand the genuine qi, they might die during the process of expelling the poison. Normal people couldn't use this method because the qi in a normal person's body was very small. The difference between a practitioner and a normal person was like heaven and earth. That small amount of qi was not enough to drive the poison in the body. Of course, if it was just a normal poison or a slow poison, it wouldn't be life-threatening. Even if the poison was expelled, it wouldn't require a lot of qi. Acupuncture or massage would be enough to achieve the goal. However, Meng Yao was a normal person, and the poison was fatal. Linny didn't dare to use this method at all. Maybe he could keep injecting energy into Meng Yao's body to prolong her life and bring her to see Old Fart? Old Fart would definitely have a way. Huh? Linny suddenly had an idea. Injecting energy into Meng Yao. His energy could be used by Meng Yao. In other words, he could transfer energy into Meng Yao's body while expelling the poison with acupuncture. The qi in Meng Yao's body originated from his body. As long as he continued to transfer energy into her body, she wouldn't run out of qi. Linny was overjoyed. He didn't think that he would have to rely on his own energy in the end. He had to thank Jiao Yazi and Jiao Lao for this. If it wasn't for him, Linny wouldn't have known that his qi was so useful. However, after the happiness, Linny was in a difficult situation. After all, to expel the poison with acupuncture, he had to take off all his clothes. However, Miss wasn't his girlfriend. If it was Tang Yun, it would be fine, but would Miss agree? Besides, it was impossible for him to take off Meng Yao's clothes when she was unconscious. After all, Meng Yao had to cooperate when he was forcing the poison out. Grandpa Guan, could you please tell the hospital to prepare a fully enclosed ward for me? I'm going to perform acupuncture, and I need absolute silence. I can't be disturbed. Linny said to Guan Xuemin after a moment of silence. Firstly, they were afraid of being disturbed, and secondly, they couldn't let anyone see Meng Yao taking off her clothes, so they needed a fully enclosed room. No problem. Guan Xuemin nodded. If Songshan First Hospital was a public-private partnership, then Guan Xuemin's words wouldn't have much influence. However, Songshan Second Hospital was completely privately owned. This meant that his son, Guan Xiaoxiang, was the biggest boss of this hospital. Even the dean had to listen to him. Putting aside his prestige in the medical world, even if he was just a normal person, his words would still carry weight in this hospital. Guan Xuemin immediately called the hospital director. Soon, a ward was cleared out in the emergency room. It was a fully enclosed operating theater. Soon, the medical staff pushed Meng Yao into the surgery room. Pengzhan, Faubert, and Guan Xuemin didn't follow them in. Although Guan Xuemin wanted to know Lin Yi's acupuncture method, he could only give up the idea after hearing Lin Yi say that he couldn't be disturbed. I want to stay with Yao Yao sis. Yushu didn't want to leave and ran into the surgery room. Shu, don't disturb Lin Yi's acupuncture. Come out now. Pengzhan knew the relationship between Yushu and his daughter, but he had to show his authority as an elder. He didn't want her to disturb Lin Yi. I won't. Shield bro, are you kicking me out? Yushu looked at Lin Yi pitifully, but her tone was firm. I will stay with Yao Yao sis. Ha, you don't have to leave. You can stay and help. Lin Yi didn't have the intention to kick Yushu out. After all, he was going to talk to Meng Yao about acupuncture later. If Meng Yao took it too hard, Yushu would be there to persuade her. Okay. Shield bro is the best. Yushu was happy. She could do something for Yao Yao sis now. Pengzhan let out a breath of relief after hearing Lin Yi's words. He didn't have to worry about Yushu being Lin Yi's assistant. After all, Yushu would never harm Meng Yao. She would do her best. Lin Yi walked into the surgery room and locked the door from the inside. The room was soundproof, and no one outside could hear what was going on inside. Shield bro, are we going to save Yao Yao sis now? What do you need me to do? Yushu asked urgently. When I do acupuncture later, I need Yao Yao to take off her clothes. But Yao Yao might feel pressured. Can you help me talk to her? Lin Yi said to Yushu. Oh, okay. Yushu nodded. But Shield bro, are you trying to use this opportunity to see Yao Yao sis body? Ha. Lin Yi smiled. I want to see. What's the point of discussing with her? I'll let you take off her clothes now. Oh, that's true. Yushu thought about it. She was right. Then what's the point of discussing? I'll take off Yao Yao Sis' clothes now. I don't care if she agrees or not. Let's ask her for her opinion. Lin Yi waved his hand to stop Yushu from continuing. He held Ming Yao's wrist and channeled the art of dragon mastery. The energy in Lin Yi's body surged into Ming Yao's body quickly. Not long after, Ming Yao's eyelashes moved. She woke up again. This time, she realized that something was wrong. I fainted again? Meng Yao opened her eyes. She was in an unfamiliar room. It wasn't the isolation room. Luckily, the people in front of her were familiar people, Lin Yi and Shu. The energy in your body is being destroyed by the poison too fast. I can only transfer my energy to you to wake you up. But this is only temporary. If I stop, you'll faint again, Lin Yi said. Ah? Meng Yao was shocked. So that was it. She thought she had recovered. What happened to me? You're poisoned, Lin Yi said. Chapter 670. Is Yao Yao Sis pretty? Yes, I'll use acupuncture to force the poison out of your body, but I'll need your cooperation. Lin Yi said. How do I cooperate? Meng Yao asked. Take off your clothes, otherwise I won't be able to do the acupuncture. Lin Yi said. Ah, no way. Meng Yao was stunned and rejected subconsciously. Take off her clothes? She blushed. How could Meng Yao agree to take off her clothes in front of Lin Yi? At the very least, she wouldn't be able to get over it. This was related to her chastity. How could she let a man look at her body so casually? You can treat me as a doctor. Lin Yi guessed that with Mrs. Personality, she wouldn't just take off her clothes in front of him. She was in pain even after drinking his drink. She was different from Yushu. Miss placed a lot of importance on this aspect. This was also why Lin Yi had to ask for Meng Yao's permission. He didn't want Miss to have a knot in her heart after this. Meng Yao frowned. Lin Yi was right. He was a doctor now, but how could she treat him as a doctor? This was a complete lie to herself. If Meng Yao let him see her naked body, how would she face him in the future? How would they live under the same roof? How awkward would that be? Besides, would she still want to get married in the future? Lin Yi was right. Meng Yao was a girl who placed a lot of importance on her body. She wanted to give her future husband a pure body. Lin Yi shrugged and looked at Yushu. He would leave this task to her. After all, Meng Yao would have to wait for a while before she fainted again. Lin Yi didn't say anything. He walked to a chair at the side and sat down, waiting quietly. Yao Yao Sis, you have to take off your clothes. Be good, be good. Yushu knew that Lin Yi had given her this task. Naturally, she had to work hard. Hee hee. Meng Yao couldn't help but find it funny that Yushu was talking to her like a little adult. She was usually the one telling Yushu to be good and obedient, but today it was the other way around. Shu, do you know that a girl's body can't be seen by a man? It's not that casual, I just want to show it to Shield bro, it's fine. Yushu said. But that won't do either. Only my future husband can see it. Meng Yao said. A girl's chastity is very important. We'd rather die than let people see it. I see. Yushu rolled her eyes, but her expression was one of regret. Yeah, that's why I said, let Lin Yi heal me with his clothes on. I won't blame him if he can't heal me. Meng Yao said with a smile as she patted Yushu's hair. Then I'll help you undress. Yushu said as she moved to help Meng Yao. Shoo! Meng Yao didn't expect that her best friend wouldn't understand what she was trying to say. He hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop her. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you already? A girl's body is very precious. You can only show it to your future husband? That's right. Shield bro has seen my body, so I can only marry him and be his second wife. I'm the second wife, so you're Shield bro's first wife. So, he's your future husband. It's fine to let him see it. At most, he'll see it in advance. Am I right? Yushu said confidently. Ah? Meng Yao's eyes widened. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Yushu's words, but Shu wasn't wrong. Lin Yi did see Shu naked. He even touched Shu's boobs and kissed her. It was quite intimate, but Yushu's theory of first wife and second wife was still a little hard for Meng Yao to accept. Wasn't it too far-fetched? But Meng Yao suddenly remembered that she said that she wanted to be with Shu forever and be a good sister forever. She felt a little dizzy. She didn't expect that she would overwork her brain and pass out again. Oh, Yao Yao sis, I'll take it that you're too shy to say anything. Yushu rubbed her hands together and started peeling Meng Yao's clothes off excitedly. It didn't take long before Meng Yao was peeled off like a little lamb. Lin Yi didn't go over, but the surgery room was only that big. Lin Yi's hearing was amazing. He could hear what Meng Yao and Yushu were talking about, but he didn't want to interrupt. He could only pretend that he didn't hear anything. Yushu, on the other hand, was taking off Mengyao's clothes while she was unconscious. Linny found it funny, but he didn't stop her. He could tell that the Miss psychological barrier had loosened a little, and it wasn't possible to convince her in a short amount of time. Yushu had already taken off her clothes, and Mengyao had no choice but to accept it. "Shield bro, come here. I've already stripped Yao Sis's clothes." Yushu called out to Linny excitedly. She was no longer worried after knowing that Linny had a way to save Mengyao. Linny heard Yushu's words and found it funny. It was as if he was a gangster and Yushu was his accomplice, helping him to harm Mengyao. Linny couldn't help but hold his breath as he walked over. Although he was trying his best to control himself, he was now a doctor and he couldn't let his imagination run wild, but the person in front of him was the Mississippi. How could he not let his imagination run wild? It would be a lie to say that Linny didn't have any fantasies about the Mississippi. After spending so much time together, Linny would definitely have some thoughts about the Miss and Shu. However, Linny couldn't really steal the Miss's body, could he? Mengyao's skin was fair and clear, and Linny's eyes were fixed on it. He didn't want to look away. This was the first time Linny looked at a girl's body openly. Although he had seen Shu's before, it was an awkward situation, and he didn't get a clear look. As for Lingshan, Linny didn't dare to look too closely, but now he could look as much as he wanted. "Shield bro, does Yao Sis look good?" Yushu noticed Lin Yi's weird expression and asked. Linny wasn't stupid enough to fall for it like Jiang Wen. He didn't say anything and took a deep breath to clear his mind. "Let's get ready." Oh! Yushu was disappointed that she didn't get what she wanted, but she was happy at the same time. If Shield Bro was as stupid as Jiang Wen, then Yao Sis wouldn't like him. Chapter 671. What are you guys doing? Mengyao felt a chill on her body when she woke up. She quickly reached her hand out and realized that she was naked. She was furious. "Shu! What did you do?" "Oh, Yao Sis, you're awake." Yushu giggled as she looked at Mengyao. "Shield Bro and I are going to treat you. Don't move, we're going to start." "You!" Mengyao was embarrassed and angry at the same time, but there was nothing she could do. She was already naked, and Linny had probably seen everything. Mengyao was a little depressed. Although the reason Yushu gave was barely enough to deceive herself, shouldn't she at least give herself some time to think and accept it? Taking off her clothes just like that wasn't very nice. "Yao, you might feel pain and fatigue when I perform acupuncture later. But you have to hold it in and don't move." Linny didn't let the two continue arguing. He started talking about the things to pay attention to during acupuncture. "Oh, okay." Mengyao had no choice but to accept reality. She felt a little better when she saw that Linny wasn't looking at her like a pervert. Instead, he was talking to her like a real doctor. "You'll feel the urge to pee later. I'm forcing all the toxins in your body into your excretory system," Linny continued. "But you have to hold it in. Don't pee directly. Only tell me when you can't take it anymore, ah?" "Oh." Mengyao's face reddened instantly. How could she not be shy when talking about sex with Linny? But she knew that Linny was treating her, so she only nodded to show that she understood. "Shu, when Yao can't hold it anymore, use the disposable cup over there to collect the urine." Linny pointed at the surgical equipment. "Oh, can't I just pee on the floor? It's nothing, right?" Yushu looked at the disposable cup. She felt that this was a difficult task. Could she complete it? "I need to make an antidote based on the poison in Yao's urine. There are still 27 unconscious students. I can't just leave them like that," Linny said. "Whether it's for Grandpa Guan's request or for Uncle Chu's company's reputation, I have to cure those 27 students." "Oh, I know." Yushu nodded. "Yao sis, you have to tell me when you need to pee later. I'll go get the cups." Mengyao was very shy. She wanted to crawl into a hole and hide herself. Especially when she heard that Linny was going to study her urine. But she was touched when Linny said that it was for her father's company's reputation. Not only did he have to save himself, but he also had to save the remaining 27 students for the sake of his father's company's reputation. Linny was just a shield that she hired. There was no need for him to do so much. He was only getting 30,000 yuan a month, but he was doing so many things that were beyond his salary. Whether it was her or Shu, Linny would be the first one to appear if something happened. He seemed to be able to do anything. He was like an omnipotent babysitter. As long as Linny appeared, she and Shu would be at ease. This was no longer the responsibility of a follower. Mengyao didn't know how to thank Linny. At this moment, she would rather not have this employer-employee relationship with Linny. Instead, they would be friends. However, if they were just friends, would Linny care about her? Did he really treat her as his friend? Linny, naturally, didn't know that the miss was worrying. He took out the silver needles and sterilized them with alcohol. He then said to Meng Yao, "Get ready." "Okay." Meng Yao responded. At this time, Yushu also took out a disposable cup and waited at the side. Linny walked around Meng Yao, trying to find a more comfortable position for him to apply the needles. However, no matter which side he stood on, it didn't feel right. This was because when Linny used one hand to apply the needles, the other hand had to hold Meng Yao's hand and transfer the energy from his body to her. So, no matter if Linny stood on the left or right side of Meng Yao, it would be a hindrance. "Can you split your legs and let me stand between your legs?" Linny hesitated and suggested to Meng Yao. This was the only way it would be more convenient for Linny to hold Meng Yao's hand while he applied the needles. However, this position was too ambiguous. Meng Yao didn't wear clothes and split her legs, letting Linny stand between her legs. It was like a man on top of a woman in a sport. Meng Yao was startled. She was about to agree when she thought of this ambiguous position. Her face turned red instantly. She didn't know if Linny did it on purpose. Why would he suggest such an embarrassing suggestion? However, Meng Yao didn't believe that Linny was a shameless person. If Linny really wanted to do something to her, he had plenty of opportunities to peek at her in the villa. However, he didn't do that. This was also why Meng Yao didn't have to worry about Linny. Besides, if Linny really had such dirty thoughts, Meng Yao would be happy even if she was angry and embarrassed. She felt that Linny finally understood that there was a girl better than Tang Yin in the house. "Yeah," Meng Yao replied weakly. She knew that there had to be a reason for the suggestion, so she didn't ask any more questions. She closed her eyes, her body trembling as she spread her legs apart. "Okay, let's get ready." Linny tried his best not to look sideways. He didn't want to see things that he shouldn't see. He walked over and stood between Meng Yao's legs. "Oh?" Yushu looked at Linny and Meng Yao curiously. Why were they in such a weird position? It seemed like they were doing something? Yushu suddenly realized something. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Shield bro, Yao Yao, are you guys going to have sex?" "Huh?" Meng Yao's face darkened at Yushu's shout, and her body tensed up involuntarily. She pulled her legs in, clamping onto Linny's thighs, but quickly pulled them apart upon contact. She'd done something so shameful, how was she supposed to live in the future? Chapter 672. Hold it in. "Oh?" Yushu shut her mouth quickly, not daring to say anything more after seeing the seriousness in the guy's voice. "Let's see if I can get Linny to do it one day." Linny reached out with his left hand and held on to Meng Yao's right wrist as he started channeling the art of dragon mastery. Linny could feel the energy in his body flowing into Meng Yao's body once more. In just a short while, half of the energy he had sent into Meng Yao's body was gone. This was the first time Linny had transferred energy into Meng Yao's body when she was awake. Meng Yao felt the same. She felt a warm current flowing into her body through Linny's hand, and as the warm current flowed into her body, her tired body became energetic again. Meng Yao's eyes lit up. Linny was not a normal person after all. She didn't know where her daddy found a person like him, but he was unbelievably strong. Would someone like him become her follower just for 30,000 kwai? But, before she could think about it, the needle in Linny's hand had already pierced into Meng Yao's body. The long needle went in with a flash, and Meng Yao's heart skipped a beat as she watched, but she didn't feel any pain. Meng Yao calmed down a little, relieved from her fear. "You'll feel hot all over, it's normal. Don't be nervous," Linny said as he quickly inserted the needle into Meng Yao's body. "Yeah, it's a little hot." Meng Yao saw the serious expression on Linny's face and couldn't help but let go of her shyness. She tried her best to cooperate with Linny. After all, Linny was busy for her. Yushu, on the other hand, opened her eyes wide and stared at Meng Yao. "Oh, Yao Yao, your skin's turning red, like a lobster?" "Shoo, stop messing around." Meng Yao glared at Yushu. "Don't distract Linny." Meng Yao was infuriated. Lin Yi's eyes subconsciously moved to her body after Yushu said that, making Meng Yao very embarrassed. "Oh. Sorry." Yushu blinked, embarrassed. "Shield bro, you don't have to look at Yao Yao's body anymore, okay? You'll have plenty of chances to look at it later. Right now, the first task is to cure Yao Yao sis, or else when Yao Yao sis dies, you won't be able to see it." Yushu. Meng Yao really wanted to kick Yushu into space if she wasn't lying on the bed. Let her go provoke the aliens. Oh, I don't know anything, and I didn't say anything." Yushu quickly shut up. Linny couldn't help but laugh. This pair of sisters was really interesting, but he had to admit that Yushu and Yao Yao's relationship was really good. When Yao Yao was unconscious, Yushu was the most nervous one, but now that Meng Yao could be saved, she started to laugh and joke around. Yao Yao, I want to feel the temperature under your armpit. This was Lin Yi's first time forcing poison out of someone, and it was a normal person at that. One could imagine how difficult it was. So every step, Lin Yi was extremely careful, not daring to make a single mistake. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Ah, okay. Meng Yao pursed her lips. Although she was shy, she still nodded. Lin Yi stretched out his right hand and touched Meng Yao's armpit, but the moment his hand touched Meng Yao's body, Meng Yao shivered subconsciously and moved her arm, squeezing Lin Yi's hand to the side of her chest. Lin Yi felt a burst of softness. It was very comfortable. Meng Yao's chest wasn't very big, it could even be said to be a little small, but a girl who was still in puberty couldn't use this as a standard. Maybe it would grow bigger in the future, but he had to admit that it felt good. Although Lin Yi was a little reluctant to move his hand away, he still resisted the urge to touch further. Once again, he reached his hand to Meng Yao's armpit, feeling the temperature of Meng Yao's body. And, it should be about time, we can proceed to the next step. Yushu's mouth moved. She wanted to say something, but after seeing Yao Yao's murderous gaze, she shut her mouth. Okay, we can proceed to the next step. Lin Yi put away the silver needles on Meng Yao's body, and then quickly inserted the silver needles on a few acupoints. You will feel a very strong pain later. This is the pure qi in your body forcing the poison together, forcing it into your excretion system. You have to endure it. If it is too painful, you can shout out. Meng Yao nodded, and said firmly, I can endure it. After a while, Meng Yao's face contorted into a painful grin. She felt as if there were ants crawling into her body. These ants seemed to be moving something from her body towards her abdomen. This feeling was painful and itchy. It was very uncomfortable. She wanted to use her hands to scratch, but one of her hands was grabbed by Lin Yi, and the other didn't dare to move. She could only grit her teeth and endure it silently. Shu, go grab Yao Yao's hand. Lin Yi could see Meng Yao's pain. How painful this pain was, Lin Yi couldn't remember, because the last time Lin Yi was poisoned was more than 10 years ago, but to Lin Yi, this pain to Lin Yi was nothing compared to the old man's torture. Oh, okay. Yushu quickly grabbed Meng Yao's left hand, said, Yao Yao, if you feel uncomfortable, you can squeeze my hand. I'm not afraid of pain. Ha! Meng Yao looked at Shu, and forced a smile. I'm fine, it's not painful, I can endure it. However, anyone who saw Meng Yao's expression could tell that she was reluctant, because her expression betrayed her. She's fine, Lin Yi said faintly. I could endure this pain even when I was 9, not to mention she's already 19. Meng Yao was a little annoyed. I'm a girl, okay? But thinking that although Lin Yi was a boy, he could endure it even when he was 9, he was still a kid at that time. He was even worse than a kid? So, Meng Yao clenched her teeth. No, I have to endure it. How can I lose to a kid? Actually, Lin Yi said it on purpose to motivate Meng Yao, otherwise, Meng Yao wouldn't be able to endure it. I need to pee. Meng Yao finally had the urge to pee, and said quickly. Chapter 673. It's raining again. Oh? Okay, I'll hold it in. Meng Yao, of course, wouldn't let Lin Yi's efforts go to waste. Lin Yi's left hand continued to transfer energy as his right hand kept changing the acupuncture points. Meng Yao's face was getting paler and paler, and the sweat on her forehead was getting thicker and thicker. It was obvious that she was in pain. Yao Yao sis, you can do it. You're the best. You've always been Shu's idol. Yushu held Meng Yao's hand tightly as she cheered. Yeah. Meng Yao smiled bitterly as her voice changed. Shu, I'm in so much pain. I know. If I could replace you, I'd rather suffer for you. Yushu said from the bottom of her heart. Ha, why would I let you suffer for me? It's lucky that I'm the one poisoned this time, not you. Meng Yao smiled. Don't worry, I'm not that weak. It's painful, but I can hold on. Lin Yi had Yushu stay here for this reason. Yushu could talk to Meng Yao without listening and cheer her on. She could also let Meng Yao hold on. Otherwise, Lin Yi really wouldn't know how to persuade Meng Yao. Meng Yao's need to pee was getting stronger and stronger, but she remembered Lin Yi's words. She couldn't just pee out easily. What if the poison couldn't be expelled? Not only would Lin Yi's efforts go to waste, but she'd also suffer for nothing. So Meng Yao endured and endured, but there was a limit to how much she could endure. Finally, Meng Yao couldn't hold it in anymore. I can't hold it in anymore, Shu. Quick. Oh, I'm coming. Yushu had put the disposable cup aside in order to hold Meng Yao's hand. She was panicking, but she couldn't find it. Where's the cup? Where did I put it? Quick, Shu. I can't hold it in anymore. Meng Yao thought that Shu would come over with the cup after she talked to her, but Yushu lost it. Wasn't she just hurting herself? Found it, found it. I'm coming. Yushu finally saw the disposable cup on the ground behind her. She picked it up and ran over. Lin Yi, on the other hand, let go of Meng Yao's hand and stepped back after inserting the last needle. I can't take it anymore. Meng Yao was on the verge of bursting into tears. How could she hold it in any longer? He didn't care if Shu came or not, and he peed right away. Lin Yi had just taken 2 steps back when he felt a stream of water falling from the sky, drenching his head and face. Meng Yao, on the other hand, was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in when she realized that she had sprayed all over Lin Yi's face and body. He hated Shu to the core. How could she drop the ball at such a crucial moment? Meng Yao wanted to hold it back, but how could she? Once released, it would be like a flood bursting through a dam. He had already endured it for a long time. Lin Yi was also dumbfounded by this sudden scene. He stood there in a daze, staring at the miss with his mouth agape. Get out of the way! Meng Yao panicked. She saw that Lin Yi was still standing there, staring at her without blinking. Meng Yao almost fainted. Ugh! Lin Yi came back to his senses and quickly dodged to the side, smiling bitterly. This really was an eye for an eye. He had drenched Pin Liang, Xiaofu, and Xiao Xiao, and now it was the mist's turn to drench him. But, that moment seemed pretty exciting? Lin Yi's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. He remembered a scene he saw in a movie. Why did it sound like a legendary scene? Yushu, too, was dumbfounded. She didn't expect Lin Yi to get drenched. When she turned around, she quickly ran to Meng Yao's side and helped her catch the urine. Oh, it's raining in the operating room too. Yao Yao sis, you're so awesome. Meng Yao didn't expect Yushu to still be in the mood to tease her. She glared at her, not in a good mood. Why didn't it kill you? Oh, I don't mind, it's fine, Yushu said nonchalantly. Look, Yao Yao, it's all over me too. Shu, you don't have to answer it. Lin Yi said to Yushu, shaking off the unhealthy thoughts in his head. Oh? You don't have to? Yushu blinked. Yeah. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. I was going to catch some urine to check if there's any poison in it, but it's much easier now. I'll just put it in my mouth. I already know what the poison is. Lin Yi didn't think that he had any perverted tendencies or hobbies, but he didn't feel any disgust when he said it. Was it because she was the miss? Or was it because he had other intentions towards her? Meng Yao wanted to dig a hole and hide in it after hearing Lin Yi say that he put the urine in his mouth. It was over, it was really over now. Why was she so useless? Couldn't she hold it in a little longer and wait for Shu to come? How was she going to face Lin Yi in the future? How was she going to get along with him? Wow, Shield Bro is so amazing, he knew what the poison was just by tasting it. Yushu tossed the disposable cup on the ground when she heard that she didn't have to take it anymore, and the pee splattered all over the floor. Meng Yao was speechless. Couldn't Shu be cleaner? How could she just throw it on the ground? But when she remembered that she had wet the entire operating room, she understood Shu's actions. Since it was the same no matter where she put it, she might as well throw it on the ground. I'll go out first, Yao Yao should be fine now. Lin Yi saw Meng Yao's awkwardness and decided to leave the operating room first. Shu, help Yao Yao get dressed when she's done resting. Oh, okay. Yushu nodded. Meng Yao wanted to say thank you, but she couldn't say it. She really didn't know how to face Lin Yi. She really didn't know. Lin Yi casually wiped his wet hair. Fortunately, there wasn't any weird smell. Otherwise, Lin Yi would be embarrassed when he went out. Lin Yi opened the door of the operating room and walked out quickly. He didn't wait for Pengzhan and Xuemin to see what was going on inside before he closed the door. In fact, even if they could see clearly, they wouldn't be able to see Meng Yao. There was a screen beside the bed in the operating room. Lin Yi. Pengzhan and Xuemin came up at the same time, looking at Lin Yi expectantly. Chapter 674. Poison prescription, this is great, this is great. Pengzhan was overjoyed after hearing Lin Yi's words. He wanted to rush into the surgery room immediately, but Lin Yi stopped him. Although Pengzhan and Meng Yao were father and daughter, Meng Yao was already a grown-up. It wouldn't be appropriate for Pengzhan to see her naked. The most important thing is, Chu Pengzhan will definitely know that he also saw Yao Yao who was not wearing any clothes. Uncle Chu, please don't go in yet. Meng Yao is still a little weak. Why don't you wait for her outside the surgery room? Lin Yi said. I'm sorry, I was too rash. Pengzhan quickly nodded and stopped in his tracks. Miracle doctor, have you cured Meng Yao? Can you take a look at my child now? Yes, godly doctor, I beg you, can you save him now? The parents were overjoyed when they heard Linny say that Meng Yao was fine. They didn't dare to interrupt because they didn't want to piss Linny off when he was talking to Pengzhan. Now that Linny was done talking, they started asking questions. Linny looked at the parents. He could understand their feelings, but Linny really didn't have the time to cure them one by one. First of all, he was tired, and there were female students among them. Linny wasn't familiar with them, and he couldn't just ask them to take off their clothes one by one, could he? Besides, it'd be disgusting if he got pee all over them. Linny didn't have any bad feelings towards the miss, but Linny didn't like it when it came to the others. I'll save them, but I've used up the antidote. I need to discuss it with Grandpa Guan and come up with some more. Linny said to the parents before turning to Xuemin. Grandpa Guan, let's talk somewhere with fewer people. Lin Yi's words were half-truths, and the parents couldn't help but believe him. They were very happy that Lin Yi was willing to save their children, but they were still worried when they heard that the antidote was gone. But since Lin Yi promised to make some more, he wouldn't lie to them. All right. Xuemin was overjoyed. Lin Yi probably knew how to cure the poison, but he couldn't say it in front of the parents. Lin Yi and Xuemin came to the isolation room where Meng Yao was. Lin Yi closed the door and said to Xuemin, it's indeed an ancient poison called deadly 7 herbs poison. The antidote was lost in the Ming dynasty, but the Tang sect collected it again at the end of the Qing dynasty and made a new antidote. Although the effect isn't immediate, it can be cured within 3 days if you increase the dosage. After a month of rest, you'll be no different from a normal person. Lin Yi didn't waste any time and told them what he knew. Oh? Deadly 7 herbs poison. Xuemin's eyes widened in shock. There's still someone who knows the recipe of this poison? From Xuemin's point of view, this deadly 7 herbs poison was a legendary existence. Not only was the antidote lost, but even the recipe itself was long gone. And not only did Lin Yi know the recipe, but he also knew the antidote? Ha, normal people don't know about it, but some ancient medical families should know about it, Lin Yi said faintly. As for the antidote, I'm afraid they don't know about it either. Xuemin couldn't help but be moved. We're going to make the antidote now? Yes, I'll write down the recipe and the antidote for you later, Lin Yi said. Give the poison recipe to the police directly, but don't tell anyone about the antidote. Go get the medicine yourself and go to Fatty Lai's medicine factory to purify it. Try to make the antidote by tomorrow morning. Those students can at least last until tomorrow night, but I can't say for sure if they can last any longer than that. Xuemin didn't expect Lin Yi to write down the poison recipe and the antidote for him directly. This made him feel flattered. How much trust did this require? The recipe for this ancient poison, deadly 7 herbs poison, was already hard to come by, but Lin Yi actually had the antidote for it. This was a priceless treasure for a medical student. Okay, I'll do it properly. Xuemin nodded solemnly. This is a good chance to hype up the company, talk to Fatty Lai and see if he has any good ideas. Lin Yi thought of using the antidote to hype up the company, but how exactly to do it wasn't Lin Yi's expertise. He needed Fatty Lai to do it. Haha, this Fatty Lai is good at it, I'll talk to him. Miracle Dr. Guan nodded. Lin Yi didn't say anything else. He wrote down the recipe and gave it to Xuemin before leaving the isolation room. Meng Yao and Yushu had already left the surgery room and were talking to Pengzhan. Meng Yao seemed to be in good spirits. When the miss saw Lin Yi, she coldly shifted her gaze to the side and didn't bother with him. Meng Yao felt guilty. She actually wanted to say thank you to Lin Yi, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. It was fine that Lin Yi saw and touched her, but she even peed on Lin Yi's face and body. How could Meng Yao face Lin Yi like nothing had happened? She was afraid that she would not be able to get over this hurdle in her heart. Lin Yi could guess what the miss was thinking, but he didn't talk to her, in case she felt awkward. Yushu, on the other hand, was excitedly telling Pengzhan how amazing Shield Bro was and how strong Yao Yao Sis was. But Yushu wasn't an idiot in front of everyone. She didn't say a word about Meng Yao taking off her clothes and peeing on Lin Yi's face. I really have to thank you this time. Pengzhan saw Lin Yi and walked over excitedly, patting his shoulder. If it wasn't for you. Yao Yao, Uncle Chu, it's what I should do. Lin Yi smiled, not arrogant. Besides, I didn't treat Yao Yao as an outsider. Good. Pengzhan nodded. If that's the case, you're part of our Chu family from now onwards. Half of my family business will be yours. All the parents were shocked when they heard Pengzhan's words. They didn't expect Pengzhan to say this, but they thought that maybe it was because Lin Yi saved Meng Yao's life, so Pengzhan was happy that he made this promise to Lin Yi. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.